Welcome to Staggered Stance, episode 187. Now, I've not been here with them all. In fact, this is the first time, episode number 1, where I get to kick us off. So, welcome everybody. It is major season, our second major of the year with U.S. Women's being exclusive to FPO. Our first combined open major event this past weekend. And that gets me excited. Ben, Evan, you enjoy the disc golf majors?
I very much did. A lot of watching disc golf, a tiny bit of playing, and then a lot of nice weather, at least up here in New England. Like it's finally springtime. It like opened up. The trees are blossoming. Good weather. And like I'd send you guys a picture of grilling outside. Got a new grill for the spring, grilling outside while watching disc golf. And that was a good time. I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to more. But Ben, how about you? How did you enjoy your weekend?
I enjoyed it. I played an A tier. Welcome to the Jungle. It was local.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and
I checked in after round 1. How did it continue on?
For me?
Yeah.
Not good. Still slumping. But hey, I'm on the up and up. I'm feeling better. But speaking of Welcome to the Jungle, it was sponsored partially by Disc Golf 978. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Disc Golf 978 for presenting this episode. Yeah, if you haven't already heard us talk about it, then Disc Golf 978 is the store you need to shop at. Has the lowest prices, minimum advertised prices. That's the lowest possible they can go. And if you can go into their store physically, they have even lower prices. Scott and Melissa, they're incredible people. They have great tournaments. They have a trailer. So if you're a tournament director and need basically a hands-off kind of player pack, gift card experience, just hit them up. They're more than willing. And they discount their store credit. So if you pay, I believe it might be 70%. So if you pay 70% of the store credit with cash, they give you 100% of that credit to payouts. And yeah, they also have a printing apparel business, and they're just the best. So I can't stress them enough. Go check out Disc Golf 978. They're here for the community. They sponsor Casey White. If anything, Casey, the local boy, did good. So go check him out for Casey.
Yeah, Disc Golf 978. Thanks. So go check out their website. Look, we know there's a lot of places you can go, and so you might ask, why would I go to Disc Golf 978? Look, Ben already said a lot of reasons. We're going to tell you a lot more, I'm sure, in the future. But one reason is because you're listening to this show, and we're saying go check it out. So, literally, there is a reason right there. So, yeah, so thank you to them, and definitely go check out what they have for sure. So, major season. Back. So as I already said, 2 FPO majors, 1 MPO major. This is how I always feel. And I'm glad we have a spring major. We're starting to really write the early part of the 2024 narrative, right? So you come out of the gate, everybody's always anxious. What's going to happen in the first event of the year? Then you get the second, third, you start feeling a story, right? Like Evelina with her win early in the season. Everybody waiting to see when Kristen Tatar re-enters the field, what she'll do. And she's performed well, but really high expectations. So I think some of her social posts are interesting to me about how she seems to be feeling the pressure. And I'm like, man, you've won some events. That just shows how high the standards have been. And then in MPO, right? Several kind of new winners and some exciting stories, but obviously, the maturing of Anthony Barella is one of the biggest stories. And then we come into a major. And in many ways, when we look back over the disc golf season and years past, it's not only exclusive to this, but I'll tell you, we kind of filter the stories based on people's performance at majors. And so that's why there's no question that I'm taken in by the major effect. Meaning when a major's on, I'm more glued to what's happening. And look, I live and breathe this sport and talk about it weekly with you all. But when majors are there, paying more attention, not only to the coverage, the storylines, the expectations in both FPO and MPO. And I don't know. That really, really excites me. Hey, so Ben, Evan, in FPO, and Evan, I'm going to kick it to you to kind of review in a minute, but at one point, I showed the leaderboard to someone I was watching with in my family and talked about, look at all the names in FPO representing more than just the United States. I thought that was a pretty cool storyline. Amongst many others that we're going to talk about here the rest of this evening. We are expecting to interview Andrew Presnell, so stay around for that. Shouldn't be too long before we get him. And I'm sure we'll talk about Evelina's win. If no other general reactions, Evan, I want to toss it to you to give us a little bit of a recap before we move over to interviewing Andrew.
Yeah, sure. I mean, quick reaction is I agree. I mean, major season, it's so exciting. I was glued to it, like I was saying earlier. I thought the Wooded Major just speaks to my heart. It's sad to see this event temporarily move on from WR Jackson, or the course as a whole of WR Jackson going to be different. It's sad to see that transition, but like what a course that this was instead, having a Northwood Park, a course that we know of, but just like what a beast this was, which I can't call it beast. There's other courses on tour that are called beast, but it was just, there was so much to it, and we'll get into that later, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think we saw some great winners. They might not be the ones you'd expect, or slightly expect, but not the most expected. But to get right into it, Evelina Salonen wins an FPO. This is her second major victory. I'm sure you've heard that plenty by now, but her first major victory was often a forgotten one. Being the 2018 Konopiste Open over in the Czech Republic. It is no longer a major. It is held often. I mean, it was off and on a major, whether it was a major or an A tier. I believe it was an A tier in alternating years. That would make sense, but it still is an event to this day at a fantastic course. And Evelina Salonen won that 2,114 days ago, which was almost 6 years. And then she now goes on to win this major. That makes it the third longest gap between FPO major wins in history. She would have had a ways to go to catch Elaine King, who's at almost over 8 years. This one being almost 6 years, so over 2 years to get there. But what a gap it is! And then to now be her second win of the season for major and elite events. That's the first time she's had multi-win. A season with multi-wins, excuse me for disorganizing that, but this one feels to me like this cemented really the season for Evelina, that the chess.com was a fantastic win. People knew it. She's been in contention otherwise, but now she's gotten 2 wins. That's the most of anyone besides Kristen Tatar this season so far, who, by the way, has 3 Elite Series wins, but has yet to win a major, has 0 from 2 events after sweeping last year. We'll talk about that later. But a phenomenal event from Evelina Salonen. She really dominated getting to the greens, as she usually does. She led in Circle 2 in regulation with 65%. That was over 11% higher than the next closest who completed the event, which was Kristen Tatar. And her putting was 67%, I believe, which, is good enough to win you a major when you're driving that well. And I think that's been, a big difference for her. She's always been driving well, but now she's getting it done on the putting green well enough to get the victories. On a sad note, though, she unfortunately did not shoot a 1,000 rated event rating. So we have ended the streak of FPO major and elite winners having that 1,000 rated winning event mark. The streak ends at 7, which is by far the longest in history. I bet we'll see plenty more of those throughout the season, but the streak, unfortunately, is over. And then speaking of streaks, Kristen Tatar ended her 960 plus round rating streak. Let me find that number real quick, because it was absolutely incredible. 64 straight rounds at major and elite events at 960 or above, the second best of all time. Like, Josh, do you have a guess? Second best. 64 is the best of all time. Second best?
64
rounds rated 960 or above at major and elite events for Kristen Tatar.
Paige Pierce.
Well, you can guess the person. I want the number because it's staggering. But if you don't think of it, I'll just go
40.
into it.
I mean, but that's a random guess. 40.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, it's almost half that. It's 26. So that's just so staggering to me that the record now is 64 straight rounds rated 960 or above. And the second best is 26, and it's done by Missy Gannon. But that's insane. But the thing is, like, I also think we'll see someone break that, which is the really cool part. But then moving over to MPO, because we don't have much time before we bring on the winner, Andrew Presnell. He gets his first major win, his first major or elite series win, like best win of his career, like by far, not even close. His previous best win would likely be a silver event last year on the Disc Golf Pro Tour at the Mid-America Open, where he beat Gannon Burr in a playoff. A great win, but definitely not the tier of an elite series and not the tier of a major event, of course. It's his first top 10 at a major of his career, which is a stat in itself, because the last player to win a major in MPO with 0 previous major top 10s was Ricky Wysocki back in 2011, in just his third major start of his career. And there's only been 6 players to do it in history. And half of those are from the 80s, when, you might not have been playing all the majors. Just the sports at a totally different age back then compared to what it is right now. Nate Doss is also on that, interesting enough, from his 05 win at Worlds. He's also the lowest rated winner at a major MPO major since Greg Barsby in 2018. I think Presnell's a long time relatively, not as long as some of the oldest veterans of our game, but for the majority of the field, he's a veteran on tour. He's been touring for a while, plays a lot of events in a year. So it is surprising, at least to me, that he gets this win, not being the highest rated, not having a major top 10 in his history before. But he is, a fantastic player who's had some good finishes before, has been up near the top, has played well, but not quite to this level. He has 97 now major and elite starts, which is the longest, not the longest, the most in history before getting their first MPO major victory. Greg Barsby also notably had 88 total starts at major and elite events before that 2018 Worlds win. But I've been talking a lot here, Josh, and also you, Ben. Any thoughts on Andrew Presnell getting this win? What did you feel like led him to victory? I don't know. Tossing it over to you guys.
Yeah, I can go. I think it was pretty incredible for Prez to pull it off, and basically he was calm, cool, collected the entire final round, it seemed. And I just thought it was really entertaining to see someone we don't really see that often at the top kind of dominating a field. And I think that's what the kind of Northwood Blacks Champions Cup layout bred. It was incredible golf, and I honestly am a big fan, and I kind of hope, me personally, Champions Cup stays here, because it was a new variety of players that, it was more about filleting the woods and surviving. I mean, we saw Casey White, he was at 14 down at one point. Andrew Presnell won with 15 down. And if he just survived and got one more birdie and parred out, he would have tied. I know that's easier said than done.
Big ask, yeah. But
yeah, I know
you're right.
But that's why I liked it. That's what I'm saying. Why I loved it so much. It was less of how far can you throw, more of how accurate are you going to be, how scrambleable, I guess, are you going to be. And that's why I thought it was an awesome event to watch, and it was huge for Andrew Presnell, who's been grinding on the tour for a while now, day in or week in, week out with tournaments. So yeah, I thought it was super entertaining to just see some local legend that we've always not local, but a legend that we've always kind of known about in the game. He was on Discraft's elite team, pull it out and be like, hey, like, guys, I'm still here. I'm here to stay. And it was pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Josh,
definitely awesome. I mean, like, his style of game, I think Ben mentioned, kind of calm, cool, collected. Not a whole lot of like charisma, but I think it served him well. And, we often throw around a term of like playing golf, which you kind of have to define what that means. But I think in general, what we feel like is a lot of just good strategic play, not overreactions, not pushing too hard, not pushing too little, making the right decisions, understanding that over 4 rounds, right? Over 72 holes, how this is going to play out all the way down to the last hole. It seemed like that's what he was executing well across the board. So I'm sure when we talk to him, we can ask him some about that and get his reactions on how his approach to the game. He talked a little bit about not being incredibly nervous, being aware of the moment, but not nervous. And I'm like, can you imagine, competing? But he played each round consistent. And I think I want to go over that a little bit later. But no major wavering. And on a course that challenging, I'm not sure if this stat is true because I was skimming it and I didn't have a way to actually verify it, Evan. And I'm not even sure if you do on the fly, but almost everybody had at least over 4 rounds or 3 rounds, if you didn't make the cut, had at least one double bogey because of how hard this course is. And I don't think Andrew ever scored worse than a bogey on all 72 holes. So,
yeah, I had this pulled up and was literally going to talk about it before we bring him on. So yeah, I will now. Didn't have a single double bogey all tournament. He was one of 3 players in MPO to do that. The others being Robert Burge and Aaron Gossage, who had good finishes but weren't quite in that contention mark. So they all had 9 and 10 more single bogeys for those players respectively. Presnell also only had 9 single bogeys all around. He's the only player to have single digit of over par strokes. That's not a good way to say that. Apologies there, but bogeys are worse, including doubles and triples and whatnot. He only had 9, which were all single bogeys, but for the whole field, everyone was double digits or more in that. So he really limited at the best. He didn't lead in birdies. He was, I think, 5 behind Nicholas Antala, which isn't a lot for a 4-round tournament, just a little over 1 per round, but still, other players got more birdies. It's clear that they bogeyed more. That's exactly what you're saying. That's golf. That's what this course needs, and I will hear it from him. But he didn't have 100% of great drives. There were times where he wasn't in the best position, or maybe it was his game plan from the start to then have his next shot not go for the green, to then be like, you know what, I'll concede the bogey here, but I'm definitely not making it a double bogey. I think he did that really well, and clearly one of the major reasons that led him to victory here.
For sure. Yeah, definitely interesting. This course, I think, makes it hard to chase as well, because you can see people get on a big run and push. At the same time, though, the margins are so tight on that course that one error, next thing you know, double, triple bogey, and you cannot gain that back. But hey, Ben, how are we looking? Are we getting our interview ready to go?
Yeah, we have. He just joined the green room, Andrew. So if you are all set, we can get you going.
Well,
yep,
I can. I'm not sure if the rest of our show
Bang.
can until Ben pushes the magic button. We'll bring you in.
Okay. And that's why they hired me.
Yeah, that's why we hired Ben. Andrew, my name's Josh, by the way. You have been interviewed on this show before, but I was not one of the hosts at the time. So
okay.
But they brought me in to interview you, the big gun. So honestly, start with congratulations. I know it's obvious, but winning a major is quite an accomplishment. And we'll have to have Statmando check me on this stat. So this has not been verified, but I think you're the 33rd MPO major winner ever. So add your name to the list, and that never gets to change. And so again, putting yourself in elite company. So I'm going to ask a standard question out of the gate, but it's how are you feeling? We're probably close to 24 hours post win. Just let us know, how are you feeling after that?
Yeah. Kind of last night, it really hadn't set in much. It felt like I knew I'd won a tournament. It felt like I'd won a tournament, but the magnitude hadn't really set in yet. And then when I was driving back home this morning, it really kind of hit me as I was driving, and I did a couple shouts in my car, just holy crap. And, it hit me this morning, and I'm just soaking it all in still. I think there's more to come as far as, just getting a bigger feeling of what happened.
For sure. Well,
and to answer your question, Josh, just going to chime in quickly. You are number 33 of MPO major wins. 5 of those have been in the last 6 MPO majors, with a lot of new winners joining that crowd. And then 15 of them, 15 of them are one-time winners. Only 18 have won twice. Next maybe goal.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Number
Yeah.
33. I'll take it.
Yep. Yep. Mark it down. And that's the kind of thing that can never be, taken away. So, hey, so your best major finishes prior to this, not to look back too much, but was actually 12th and 14th in 2018 and 19 Worlds. So it's two strong back-to-back finishes there. Champions Cup in the past have not been necessarily strong finishes. So here's the deal. I want to know what your mindset was coming into the weekend. So we'll get to the in-round play, but round one, ready to tee off. Your best finish this year was 17th place. So what was your mindset? I presume you're going to every event trying to win, but just let us know, what were you thinking as you were ready to play this major event?
I feel like I was more prepared for this tournament than I had been for some previous tournaments. Like, I know for Jonesboro, I had one practice round and I stunk really bad at Jonesboro. But I got to Northwood Black, and I had three full practice days. I was able to avoid the rain. I forget what day it rained, maybe Tuesday or something, but I was able to get 3 full practice rounds in, felt really prepared. And it's kind of a course where you just see the line right off the tee and that's your only option. So it's not a lot of thinking during the practice rounds. It's, you just kind of one and done. You either hit the gap or you don't. And so yeah, I felt like I had good preparation in my practice leading up. And going into round one, the goal is to always start off with a decent round, especially at Northwoods Black, because they say you can't win it on the first day, but you can definitely lose it on the first day. And so my goal was anything under par for round one, and I think I birdied hole 18 round one to shoot 1 under par. So I was pretty stoked with that.
Yeah, so executing the plan, I think you're giving us insights, which we as observers, it looks true, which is, again, you can lose it on this course. It is incredibly hard to go out and take it, especially early. And yeah, you shot 1 down, and then from there on, you went 4 down, 6 down, and 4 down. So really consistent. And I know you referenced this in some of your interviews that we've already heard around your consistent putting, and just kind of consistent driving and not trying to take off too much. So again, that was really awesome. So this course is, I'm going to use the word infamous. I actually think a lot of people love it, but it's infamous for being incredibly hard.
Yep.
You just said in some ways, I'm using this word, you didn't, but it's simple. That doesn't mean easy. Simple means you stand up and it's well, here's the plan. You either execute this shot or you don't. Is that really your mindset throughout the game, or through all 4 rounds on this course? Does this course suit you particularly well?
I definitely think this course suits my game. I used to be that younger player who loved the 550-foot backhands, and I've I don't know if it's because I play too many tournaments or whatever, but I know I'm getting a little older and I can't throw that far anymore. So I've kind of adjusted to the shorter throwing through the woods game has been my strong suit as of the last couple of years. So yeah, coming into this course, I knew I get to throw my mid ranges a lot, which we don't really get to do on tour anymore. You rarely ever pull out a mid range. It's crazy. And so, yeah, coming to Northwoods Black, I was finally, I get to use the discs that I know how they fly really well. I can just pop them at a really decent speed and just hit the fairways and just let the disc do the work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, as fans watching, we can see how different this course is compared to many of the tour courses now. And I think we appreciate that variety. So we're talking about a plan, the ability to kind of, it suits your game. But the truth is, many people have plans. I think there's a Mike Tyson quote that's everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? And so the idea is as soon, and that course takes its swings, right? And so here's a question. So you have a plan, but how do you maintain an even keel or not get off your plan the first time you hit that tree and are 50 feet deep in the woods? Is this just something inside of your character to stay even keeled, to just kind of keep that mindset? As you were joining, we were talking about the phrase, playing golf, right? Is that just inherent into you, or is that something you practice? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, especially on a course like that, you really have to play golf. I didn't hit every line. I was in the woods a couple times off the fairways, and I think I made a Twitter reply today. Somebody asked, like, how did he have no double bogeys or worse? It was only single bogeys. And I said, I never attempted to make one hero shot out there. I would just pitch right back out to the middle, have myself a play for a bogey when I had to. And I think avoiding those double bogeys, triple bogeys that, a lot of the players are taking on those hard holes, getting a bogey on 12 and getting a bogey on 14 isn't that bad. So you just kind of have to have a different mindset where, par on holes 10 through 14 are not that bad. And you just have to get through that, survive, as I say, and then close out with some birdies on the last 4 holes.
Yeah. All right, so just changing ever so slightly, and I want to talk about a few things that happened on the course, but the MPO tournament was certainly disrupted by weather, and both the scheduling, for sure, as well as the actual course dynamics. Like by the end on video, it looked like rushing rivers through some of that area. But just talk about the scheduling. Like, does that challenge you at all? I heard you talk about it on live about, hey, you're a morning person, whatever, but just like, is that a dynamic for you that influences the way you approach it, or you just like roll with it and it's not a big deal?
When we got the email saying we were going to go back out at 6:45 in the morning the next day, I was actually, I wouldn't say I was happy, but I was like, okay, like I know a lot of players aren't going to be happy with that, and I don't mind it at all. And so maybe that played into maybe a little bit of an advantage for me. But yeah, I'm a morning person. I play so many tournaments with a 9 a.m. start time that I drive a couple hours to go play beforehand. So I get up early and I play early morning rounds all the time. And I said it in an interview, I think with Nate Perkins, but it reminded me of Mid-America last year where we had to do the same thing. We had to get up early, finish round 2, and then play round 3 on the last Sunday. And I won that tournament too, so maybe it's something about rain delays and getting up early and playing 1.5 rounds on a challenging course where I just do well.
Well, people like to use the adjective like, you're a grinder out there, and maybe that's part of it. You're like, hey, bring it on, an early round, give me 1.5, 2 rounds in a day, a little bit old school. Maybe it suits your game, which is awesome. So coming into the final round, you could obviously see who was on your card. You know the score differential. You also see the chase card. I presume you had looked at the scores and know. I'm just curious, is any part of your mindset being aware of like, hey, coming into this final round, who's on my card or who's on chase? Or is it really just like, of course you know about that, but you're just laser focused on your plan?
Yeah. The chase card was stacked with like Ricky, Calvin, Dickerson, and Casey, who was playing really well. But I think there was maybe a 2 or 3 stroke gap between the chase card and the top card. And so in my mind, I'm thinking if I'm winning the lead card and I'm under par, then it's going to take something incredibly special from the chase card to catch me. Because I was at 11, and I think top of chase card is 6 under par. So they would have had to beat me by 5 if I shot, if I'm shooting under par, that means they have to shoot at least a 6 under par to catch me. So once I knew I was kind of staying under par and was getting pretty consistent, I wasn't too worried about the chase card. I did check scores, I think, on hole 14, and I think I saw that they were kind of behind after that. And so it was really down to like me and Nicholas, and I think Ezra was kind of close at that time too. And so it was just, in my mind, it was a three-person battle with 5 or 4 holes to go.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. All right. So you said you only missed 4 C1 putts on the weekend. And by the way, I don't think I see stats in round 1, so I'm going to take your word for it. All the stats we have, that's true.
Yep.
But one of those missed putts, hole 5. Hey, so I can bring it up because you won the event, right? Like if something else happened, this might feel sour, but you won. You've got a good story. But just tell us what happened there. I'll tell you, the commentators were like, hey, we saw a leaf blow and maybe that distracted them. So is that the story? Tell us what happened.
The story is, I think I had a 3-stroke lead going into that hole. I'd piped that hole every single round. I piped it again that round, and everybody else kind of, I don't think any of them made a putt for birdie. And so I'm walking down there to my 22-footer. Just in my head, I'm like, I'm about to go up 4 strokes. Like, let's do this. I mean business. I'm here to win. And I walk up there, and as I'm lining it up, I feel it get a little breezy, but I'm just like, it's 22 feet. You got it. And like as soon as I putted it, I don't know if it lifted out of my hand or if I putted it nose up or whatever, but just kind of sailed over the basket. The leaf that they mentioned, that I didn't see that, but maybe, you know, the leaf blowing kind of shows that there was maybe a gust in there that kind of carried the putter away from me. But yeah, that was shocking. And there was a brief moment in my head. I'm like, is this where I unravel? And like, I don't know, but it was a wild time. I didn't have a backup putter, so I had to send my brother to my car to get a second identical putter, which I found out that was 167 grams. I did not know that until I got it. So I was putting with a lightweight putter in the wind for the remaining 11 holes or whatever, 12 holes.
Oh man,
Wow.
that's crazy. What a weird sequence of events. We could actually see, I will just say again, this is my subjective opinion, but it looked a little disorienting because you putted, of course you've got some frustration, and then you're like, is my disc floating away? Then you're trying to decide, am I gonna putt from my lie? Or am I going to putt from where it went OB? And then I'm sure you're thinking, now I don't even have my putter. That's a lot to happen.
It was.
And obviously mentally, that can be pretty disorienting, but it seems like you recovered fairly well from that, obviously, by the way the tournament played out.
I was telling myself, do not appear flustered, because like if you look flustered, everybody on the card's going to think that
they got you.
They got, you know, that'll give them a little bit of a boost if I look like I'm flustered. So I tried to maintain the composure, at least on the outside, but on the inside, there's a little bit of a panic for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I could see it, but you actually I mean, given the circumstances, there had to be a little bit of uncertainty, but I think you managed it well. All right. So I want to jump ahead, a whole 11 holes, hole 16, pretty amazing Anheuser putt around the tree. So to me, that was a big moment, impressive putt. There has been some discussion of like, hey, were you inside or outside the circle? Did you step sideways? Did you step forward? So I just wanted to ask so you can just set the record straight for all the people who are speculating.
Yeah. So when we got up to the green, we were kind of determining who was out. Ezra putted first. He was a couple feet outside circle. And then it was between me and Nicholas, and we determined that I was further out than Nicholas. And Nicholas was close to the circle's edge. He was maybe like a foot or two inside the circle. And so then whenever I stepped up to my putt, I'm like, it looks like I'm outside circle. And if I'm out from Nicholas, you know, I'm probably outside circle. But it is something that we didn't like verbally confirm that I was inside or outside before I putted. And when I was putting, I was not planning on kind of like stepping forward, because I usually don't do that at all. I usually try to stay totally planted, but it was kind of a weird stance that I had, and kind of like reaching for the Anheuser just kind of made me fall forward a little bit. But when I did fall forward, I was like, I think I was outside, and I was just kind of waiting for somebody to question it, but nobody did. So I guess everybody thought that I was outside circle.
Hey, well, that's what counts, and thanks for sharing.
And there were no whiskers over there. I was surprised there wasn't a whisker over there to look, because I kind of looked to the right and the left and didn't see anything. But yeah, in my mind, I think I was outside circle. I've watched it again, and the putt had a lot of air time, so I think it was outside.
Depending on the angle of the video too, because I've seen multiples, you didn't have much of a step forward. It looked more of a step sideways. Is that possible as well, or were you definitely stepping forward?
I saw an angle, and I do think I did step forward. But again, with me being outside circle just barely, I don't think it matters. And if somebody questioned it, you know, we would have, you know, pasted off or something, or
Hey, and the only reason it's even a question here, like nobody has questioned it except for people who like to watch the video on the internet. So like, again, I don't think it's actually a big story, but you know, people are curious, and it's good to hear it straight from your perspective. All right. So again, congrats. I'm curious. You've mentioned, and I just don't know if I've heard you talk much about it. You obviously have a lot of sponsors, a lot of supporters. So I'm not looking to exclusively call one out, except for there's an interesting story here, at least or curiosity. You've mentioned Paul McBeth when thanking your sponsors and supporters. So like, what's been his role in supporting you? In the mix of all those other names and companies that are supporting you.
Yeah. So is when I was looking for a bag sponsor for this season. I had reached out to a couple different bag sponsors, and we were just kind of in talks and everything. And I was just like, I'm going to reach out to Paul McBeth, and maybe I can rep some Paul McBeth grip bags if he wants to sponsor me. And so I just like randomly sent him an Instagram message. I'm just like, hey, looking for a bag sponsor. I'm looking for, just a couple bags a year that I can rep, anything with your name on it, with your signature. And he thought it was a really cool idea. And then he had told me about his new bag lineup coming out later this year. Well, I guess at that time it was later for the year, but the one that just came out. And so he thought it was a really good idea, and he was all for it. And so I've been repping his bag for this year. And then he also had the idea, I don't know if you saw today, but Ledgestone did like a Prez for Prez campaign, just kind of like a silly thing, not taking it too seriously, but like a Prez for Prez line with like hats and t-shirts, since it's an election year. And that was a McBeth idea that he kind of came up with on his own. And I was like, hey, if you're going to do more for me, I'm all for it. So that stuff actually just released on the Ledgestone website, I think like an hour ago or something.
That's awesome. I saw someone that posted out there. Yeah. And it's all in good fun. Like you said, election year, matching your nickname. And hey, that's great. Showing some creativity, ambition, and curiosity on your part, reaching out to somebody like Paul, and then having that kind of reciprocate. So thanks for elaborating there.
And that just happened. It's funny that I just happened to win the major right before that stuff gets released, because we had that planned well before Champions Cup, and it was just really good timing to win a big tournament to have this Prez for Prez merch come out. So
yeah, that's probably incredible timing. I assume like there's benefits for you in that, right? Like if they sell this merch, it's good
for sure.
You. Okay, so talk about timing and nailing it. Awesome. So kind of transitioning on that topic. So what does this do for your career? Besides the fact, again, you're established in disc golf history, that part is clear. But like, what about like, is momentum a thing? Confidence? How about contract negotiations, merch? Like, is this a consideration for you, or do you still have to let that dust settle as you think about those?
So I can talk about the contract situation a little bit. Bob Giulio with Discraft, the team manager, he was out watching the final round yesterday, and when he came up and congratulated me after I won, he said, "Welcome back to the elite team." And so,
let's go.
So yeah, I'm getting a bump back up to the elite team mid-season. It's the first time any player has ever had that happen. But he said it was well deserved. If you win a major tournament, that's a perk of it. And so I'll be getting a Tour Series disc coming soon. It'll be the brand new Swarm mold. And then I will also be getting a Champions Cup commemorative disc, and we're going to do some kind of drone, I think in like a swirly color shift plastic or something. So yeah, getting a little boost in the contract, and we'll see where it goes from there.
That's sick. That makes me smile. We root on pretty much all the players here, and knowing how hard you work, and you were out there working faithfully regardless of where you were at, right? You were kind of grinding, as we've said, and to see that pay off is super exciting. And you just gave us a lot of exclusives on your contract, and well, maybe not exclusives, but at least it's new to us. And what's happening with all your discs and merch, and we can all watch for that. So super, super excited. That's really cool.
I'm excited. I got a lot of stuff coming out, and I'm excited to have it out there for people if they want to get it.
That's awesome. Hey, so we're getting just about time to wrap up. Thank you for your time here. But so you do play a lot of events, and I've seen you already said you're on to DDO, I think, correct? Like you're planning to play
I'll be going to DDO on Wednesday.
All right. So I know you have some various like sports background. I think soccer and coaching and all that. So maybe that's not relevant at all. But how do you ensure physical health and mental health with the grind. Are you doing anything out there unique that is working well for you? Because you're talking about throwing lots of rounds on lots of long courses week in and week out. Are you doing anything to make sure you maintain that consistency in physical play?
As far as like, I probably could be doing a little more as far as like taking care of my body, like maybe working out mid-season or like going on runs. But I think playing the smaller tournaments within the Pro Tour events kind of helps me stay in disc golf shape, so to speak. The courses that I play on these like smaller tournaments aren't too long, aren't too grueling, and so as far as like it physically taking a toll on me, I don't think it does that too much. Mentally, it is nice to, whenever I play really well at these tournaments and get a win, I think that's a mental boost going into a bigger tournament. Just getting a win and playing well is a boost to try to carry that into a big tournament.
That's awesome. Are you heading to Europe at all this season?
I am. I will be playing the European Open. Okay. Just that one.
So that way you can be the 19th person to ever win more than one major. I see, chasing that number.
That'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool.
Awesome. Great. Well, I'm going to toss it over to Evan before we kind of wrap here. Maybe just a fun question for you, but I'm just going to say again, thank you for your time. You've invested like nearly half an hour with us, and big congrats. It makes us happy to see someone like you who's been out there working and have shown, you're a good disc golfer, but then to come out and win a major on that track. So again, congrats. So Evan,
I'll appreciate that.
Throw it over to you.
Yeah, I just got a couple of fun ones. I mean, Josh laid it up for me that you were a soccer player. I know you played at a high level. I don't know if it was college, but it was at least high school and coached. Mm-hmm. But you can talk about that too. I don't mean to cut that off. But what I am curious about is if 4 rounds at Northwood, including pretty much 2 in one day, is more or less grueling than playing like a full 90 at a high level of soccer.
So I played soccer through senior year of college. I would say the 90 minutes of soccer is probably more grueling, to be honest. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Northwoods, if you're playing if you're playing in a cart of 4 people, there's a lot of standing around and stuff. So it's like, I don't know. I don't ever get out of breath playing Northwoods, but it is like a longer time where you're on your feet. So your body might get a little more achy. But I'd say during a soccer round, you get more like physically exhausted and winded and stuff.
Yeah, don't doubt it, but I appreciate the answer. And the other one is you've had a few special release discs with Rocket League, and I mean, what a par save, and I think that's awesome. I haven't played too much lately, but just if you have anything to share on that, you still play on Rocket League, maybe what rank you are if you are, just general curiosity.
Yeah, Rocket League, it's my second passion. I love playing. I love watching the pros play. Current rank is Champ 3, if that means anything to anybody. I translate that to about like a 980 rated disc golfer. Like I can do some good things, but I'd still get destroyed by the top level guys. So that's kind of how I explain how good I am at Rocket League. But yeah, I had a couple of those discs come out, and a lot of people love the collab between the two, and they've been selling well.
Yeah. All right. Last one. I know you're a big Rams fan. You got some, things hanging behind you. It again, just general curiosity for me. I hope people enjoy listening to this as well. You're from Missouri. Is that a St. Louis thing, and you just stuck with them through the move to LA? Is there some other reason behind your Rams fandom?
My older brother, my caddy, he was a Chiefs fan, and as the younger brother, you gotta like the opposite thing, and so the St. Louis Rams were the other option. So like the St. Louis Rams, and then we had like Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, Greatest Show on Turf in the early 2000s, late 99, and that was really fun. But then they had that like 10 years of just suckage, and then they moved to LA, and I was like, this is my chance to change teams if I want. But I stuck with them, and it paid off. We got the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Team's looking good now. And yeah, love the NFL and love the Rams.
Yeah, appreciate it. And appreciate Super Bowl 36. And I actually can't even name the number when they lost to the Patriots. But you guys did get the win a few years after that. So not to rub it in too much. But that's all I got, Josh. I don't know if you had any more, or Ben, if you wanted to hop in. I don't know if I am going to close out or not.
You can toss it back to me, Ben, if you've got no questions. Again, I'll say, Andrew, congrats. Certainly we'll continue to be rooting for you out there. We may have asked every question we need to. Is there anything that you feel like we missed? Anything you're wanting to add? Any additional sponsors? If not, that's fine as well. Just to give you a chance for a last word.
Yeah, just big shout out to all the messages I've got. If you sent me a message, I've probably spent 2 or 3 hours today trying to get back to everybody, saying thank you. And shout out to sponsors: Discraft, Ledgestone, Underpar Apparel, Greasy, Paul McBeth, Elephant and Castle. Shout out to my girlfriend, who's been sitting here for 3 weeks all alone waiting for me to come back, and is happy to come back with some fun and exciting news of a major win. And shout out to my family who watched every second yesterday, and shout out to my brother specifically for coming out and caddying. And yeah,
that's awesome. Great support that you've got, and it's obviously paid off. So again, thank you. Appreciate you joining tonight, Ben. Evan,
yeah, thanks for having me on.
I'm all good. Thanks for joining us, Prez.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Prez for Prez. I'm going to write you in,
Prez.
Okay?
Prez for Prez.
All right, Prez for Prez. Go get some merch on the Ledgestone website.
Yes, sir.
That is right. Awesome. Thank
you.
you.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Yeah, so Ben, Evan, every person who wins a major, there's a feel-good component to it, because winning a major is always hard-earned. But, every person just feels unique, and you feel like he's been working hard and he's a consistent grinder. He was not on the top Discraft team, but playing as if he was.
He got kicked off.
I know, but like, how cool is it that like Bob is there and like after is like, you're back, and then he gets all this merch
and
stuff. That's
and
awesome.
Yeah, kudos to Bob and Discraft, because that's what I was hoping for. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be that quick. Like on my other podcast, I was saying, like, I really hope, he gets back on the elite team. But for him to win and then Bob coming up and be like, hey, welcome back. Super cool. I know, like, the incentives on the elite team just off Tour Series alone is going to make his pockets a little deeper and hopefully propel him to, keep chasing the dream and keep going after it. And also that $15,000 payday probably helps a little bit too.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know where that ranks in the top paydays, but it's getting in the top tier. I know all the pins have been going up, of course, but 15 grand, certainly not bad.
Yeah, you're gonna make me look it up, but
yeah, that's all right. It's in. Let's just call it in the top tier, and you can get the number if you want. But it's right at the top.
I'll have it. You said it was 15,000.
Yes, 15 for first.
I got it right here. That would. Oh, I got to count backwards. It's the 20th time that someone's been paid $15,000 or more in MPO at a PDJ event. So it's the 5th time. So tied for 16th best.
All right. Well, there's been a lot of events in history, so it's definitely up there. So again, congrats to him. So I know we may be bringing in someone else for an interview later. We've got a little bit of time. We want to review Pop, Drop, Lock. I also have some other things we've skipped over on Champions Cup, so we're not done. It's a major event, so we still have some major talk. But Evan, I forget if we rushed off of your recap at all. Was there anything coming back to you to cover? If not, I want to get to some FPO stuff as well.
I have a lot more to cover. I just covered the winners, if I'm correct, and kind of just like some basic event stuff. So there's a lot of things to go down. Let me just do like 30 seconds on kind of the two things I want to touch on. I mean, we'll talk Casey White later, because is he still coming on? Are we good for that? We're doing this live, so I'm learning things as it's live. Sweet.
Hopefully.
So hopefully we'll talk to Casey a little bit more. So I think that'll kind of cover all the stats I have on that. But I think this FBO leaderboard was incredibly interesting. The top 6 players, 5 of them have nationalities outside the U.S., and then the one in the U.S. is Owen Scoggins, who does list her nationality as the United States, as her hometown in California. Notably from Laos. I don't know, what her personal feelings are, how she registers it, but I believe she was born outside the U.S. So that's 6 players born outside the U.S. who are leading FBO major. And I mean, we've known Kristen Tatar to kind of be the number one player in the world for a couple of years now. And we've known these other players are good, but it does feel like unique and like, I don't want to say turning of the guard, but this special moment where the leaderboard was so dominantly of Europe and the rest of the world. And I think a few newer names are Silva Saarinen and Rachel Turton, who have made splashes before. I mean, Silva Saarinen won 5 PDGA Euro Tour events last year. She made a lead card just at Music City, if I'm correct, or it was Jonesboro. I believe it was Music City just recently. So we saw her there. And Rachel Turton won a Disc Golf Pro Tour's silver event. Right. I'm almost positive now. She might've come in second. Oh no. Now I'm double guessing myself, but she has made herself known on a few events before, maybe on a lesser tier, but then was leading this PDGA major. And so that was really incredible to see. And then we can just go a few weeks ago where, Anniken Sten won an Elite Series event. So we're just getting this huge influx of just European women who are just stepping up, and that's not to undersell the Americans who have stepped up in the past or at other events, but it was really unique to see, and so I don't know, any other thoughts from you guys on that?
Yeah, so she came in second at PCS Sula. Is
Okay.
where we would have seen Rachel's name before. And yeah, like it's awesome. I feel like I remember, and I'm kind of just doing this off the fly, but coming, just prior to kind of the COVID disruption to the tour, you saw like Evelina and Henna perform well. And then there was a disruption, obviously. And as they kind of came to re-enter the scene in the year following, there was a lot of talk around like, all right, the European women, right, are going to come, and if you go back and listen to all different media, everybody was waiting for them to kind of explode on the scene. And they were okay and they were good, but they didn't explode on the scene. And that really did not end up being the narrative. And then, of course, in comes Kristen with her domination. We all know that story. But it's really interesting to kind of see maybe that narrative was just a few years ahead. And now we actually are seeing that domination. And clearly it's not only international. We know how like Missy's performed. We've got plenty, like she won a major this year. So this isn't the whole story, but this particular weekend really demonstrated that. And yeah, so again, not only is it neat to see the diversity and kind of the global representation, that's cool. But the way the competition was, went down is really what it's about, right? Regardless of where they're from. How about, so Evelina winning, how about Henna almost chasing down and waiting there? And obviously it's fun when they're personal friends and travel partners. That's a unique aspect. But just the way the competition really kind of tightened up there at the end, and seeing Evelina pull it out. We just interviewed her, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and how all smile she was and really boosting her confidence. And it makes you wonder if getting that confidence, will be the turning point for her. With still a lot of the season left. I don't know. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting.
To Henna for a second. I mean, I don't think we were ready for her to win, and I mean not for her as a player, but the scenario in which she would have won, being from the chase card. I mean, the entire event, both divisions, was all over the place. We knew that anything could happen at any moment, and that's one of the great things about this course. But it didn't feel settled for Evelina. And then you kind of saw, Kristen Tatar not really make a few putts, and she kind of stayed a handful of strokes back. And then, Salonen kind of grew her lead or held on to her lead. But then all of a sudden, like Henna on the chase card, eagles hole 18, which was an eagleable hole. Lots of players were doing it. But still, she got that eagle to then all of a sudden her score is close. And now, if Evelyn just bogeys a hole or two, she's going to a playoff or losing. And that happens so quick. Like, I don't know if we were fully prepared that, hey, this course is really hard. And generally you lose strokes almost as much as you gain strokes to then get two. That was insane. And it easily could have been a playoff. It easily could have even swung to Henna's way in the regulation of the tournament. We're still looking for our first ever FPO major chase card winner. Actually, even MPO hasn't had a chase card winner, which like it feels like we're knocking on the door for that to happen. Throw Pink, which is an X8 tier, but many people consider it a high level tournament. That's seen chase card win just last year with Holland Hanley. And then of course we've seen chase card winners at Elite Series events pretty often. that would have been a special moment in disc golf, but not to take away that from the special moment it was for Evelina Salonen winning. Just there were so many potential ways for this event to be special. It was fantastic. I can't stop talking about it. So someone else start talking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, then like Owen Scoggins also one stroke behind, and obviously Henna's was more dramatic, but I mean, it was like pretty close. And again, whether it feels entirely fair or not, I think it's accurate that somebody like Evelina, we've seen perform so well and she's really cleaned up her game. Putting is still not her strong suit, but it has become good enough, right? To cover over, or really to have her driving cover over her, mediocre putting, but it's been good enough. But that makes us all nervous if you're rooting for Evelina to watch coming down the stretch on that course with the incredible challenges, because we all know that it is very possible to have a 2 or a 3 putt. And so the context of that moment ups the excitement. And I thought it was great. Really good competition. That's what you ask for in majors. And, Evan, you talked about at some point earlier in the show about really liking this course. We talked with, Andrew Presnell about it. It brought an interesting dynamic. I will tell you, it was a totally different vibe. I don't know if I'll say weird because I think I liked it, but a vibe of like the scores were just so incredibly different than we're used to in the sport of disc golf.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Ben who was maybe talking about liking it even more than me,
Yes.
but yes, I did also say it. I think what's great about it is it's such a change of pace. I mean, disc golf as a sport, I think the biggest, I don't want to say biggest, one of the biggest differences, because obviously the nature of the sport, throwing, discs instead of hitting a ball with a club but one of the biggest differences from golf is just traditional golf is the type of scoring. I mean, it's very, the pars are generally more par threes. I mean, now we're shifting to more par fours and fives, but still a lot of par threes. And the scoring is a little bit more birdie heavy. Putting might be a little bit easier compared to traditional golf, at least at this high level. And so we see more birdies. Usually it's a race to the bottom as far as lowest score. And this really felt like you need to get your birdies. You can't win with even par in either division. But once you kind of get to that pace, like, don't lose it. And that's what happened to Casey White. I mean, Ben, that's literally what you said. You mentioned how he got to 14 down. Andrew Presnell won with 15 down. Like, Casey White was right there. And he would have been a clear second place if he just parred out. Like, that is such a change of pace than the rest of disc golf. And now, would I want every single event on tour to be this way? Like, I don't think so. I think that would be really tough to have week in and week out. But that's not its place. Like, it's a change of pace. It's this special type that we only see a few times a year. Like this type of thought in Northwood, maybe the most so. So I think that's great. I mean, that's always my stance is I think change of pace is the best. I love this wooded major, but of course it's not to say that like USDGC is less fun, because that's a fantastic major. It's more open. It has a few wooded shots, but like it's a different type of golf you're playing. You have a lot more airspace, but you don't have a lot of ground space. And then, European Open is a little bit similar, but a little bit more wooded at the same time. And then we have Worlds that changes around. Like it's the change of pace that's good. So having one major that's a dedicated wooded major and then other Elite Series events that are in the woods, I think so crucial. And it's such a good change of pace to hit this and have that different type of atmosphere.
Yeah. So a couple other things about Champions Cup. So we look down the leaderboard and it's really interesting what we see. So I took a glance at, there's a bunch of ways to filter this. There's a lot of big names to see where they performed, but was curious where prior major winners actually finished in this event. So people who have succeeded in past majors. The Evelina, as an example, of course, has a prior major, so she performed well. She won. But then, we saw Kristen at 5th, Missy at 7th. But then, and I'm skipping over a bunch of names. You're not going to be surprised by some of them, but like Paige Pierce's performance has been off this year, so maybe you're not surprised. But Juliana Korver missed the cut, Paige Chu, Paige Pierce, and then Haley King, 32nd place, missed the cut. So it's just interesting. Either these players have, specific issues that are challenging their performance, which I think is probably the case, as well as I think the course offers a different kind of challenge that if you're not up for the task. In MPO, Corey Ellis with the DNF, Eagle McMahon, 90th place finish. Ben, Evan, have you heard any explanation from Eagle as to that? Obviously, part of the explanation is it's his first event back after a long time off, recovering from injury, new discs. But like, 90th place. I think some people were wondering if he'd still potentially pop off at this event, and that was the opposite.
Yeah, I can go on that. I know I didn't watch personally the YouTube video, but he definitely posted a YouTube video about kind of his experience at Champions Cup and what happened. So if you want to know more on that, watch the YouTube video to the fans. But for my opinion, that what I think, yeah, I mean, he's basically recovered from surgery. He's probably not fully himself, not getting comfortable. I mean, we see guys like Drew Gibson who just had an arm surgery, an arm injury of some sort, maybe his shoulder.
Too many tattoos, maybe? No.
No. And he took time off, and then he's now making posts saying like, wow, I didn't realize taking time off for 6 months was going to put me back so far. It's time to put my foot on the gas and really catch back up to where I'm at. So I think that's probably where the same position the Eagles probably in, where it's like, okay, I'm going to come back. I'm going to go right off the bat back to where I was. But unfortunately, that's not the case. You know, the field, as we keep saying, is getting a lot better. And if they're going to keep playing, you're going to get left behind. Unfortunately, it is because of an injury. But I think, yeah, he just probably wasn't ready to come back, and he tried to come back. But I wasn't expecting much. That's what was going to happen, and he shouldn't be expecting much. I mean, it's going to be a slow build, but I do believe, like I said, I believe he's going to win this year, and I do believe he's going to come back and go for full force. But it's just going to be a little bit of learning process that he should have some grace with himself. Be like, hey, like, you know, I haven't been playing for a while. I've only been playing Colorado, like just warming up my arms, you know. And it's a new Eagle. He's got to figure out his new game.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure he's wiping those tears off with his, you know, pile of cash and pile of envies. You know, saying that jokingly. I think, you know, Eagle is a veteran enough player who can shake this off with ease. I mean, it is his worst non-DNF finish of his career, and his previous worst non-DNF finish was at Ledgestone, which didn't include Northwood, but I mean, same area. So I think that's interesting, although it was back in 2015. So I wouldn't read too much into that, but it makes a fun stat. But I mean, this is a tough course to have your debut event of a new year after an injury, recovery with the new bag. Like, there's just so many variables on a course where, like, you just need to be able to, like, turn your mind off, hit a gap, and trust, you know, discs that you really trust. Like, it's just a tough course for the situation. And I think that's okay. I don't think Eagle was coming in being like, oh, I'm going to win just like I did European Open. Maybe he did. I mean, that's the mentality of champions like Eagle himself. But I don't think the fans should have had that mentality that he was going to come in and at a tournament like this, just absolutely fillet the woods and be as dominant as he is. And Ben, I have the same feeling as you. Like, Eagle, I would guess he gets a win this year. That's my gut reaction. It is hard. There's a lot of people who can win, and he didn't win all of last year at the major and elite level, just a couple of silvers. So I don't know. It's tough, but it's not the best debut for MVP. But for anyone who's like, oh no, like Eagle didn't make his sponsor proud, like, I think MVP is just fine. They just had Simon win last week. They had Silva Sardin look fantastic. And Eagle is going to be just fine and be a great player for their sponsorships.
Yeah, you got to put it in context, and I think both you did that well. I don't think it's something to independently worry about. Isaac Robinson, prior champion, obviously different course, 22nd place. You have World's champ Barsby coming in 15th. And McBeth, Burr at 10th, and Dickerson. And then Ricky, who hasn't won a major in quite some time, but still one of our big names in the sport, finishing in 3rd, and seemed at one point maybe he could be pushing for the chase. But as we all talked about, this course just really an incredibly tough dynamic to actually catch anybody if that person is playing consistent.
Yeah. One note on Ricky that I want to make. Yeah, he hasn't won since 2017 Worlds, I believe. But in 2017, I believe it was Worlds. This is most recent, which is, I think, it's June of 2017. So we're getting close to that 7-year mark, which I'm sure that's looming in his head, and that's a tough thing to shake off, especially with the number of Elite Series wins he's had. You know, he won 5 Elite Series just a couple of years ago. He's won the Tour Championship back to back, which is, you know, a great event. He obviously can do it, but I think it's a little bit different for the majors, and it might be hanging in his head a little bit. But on the flip side, he still plays incredibly well at majors. And this was his first podium in a handful of events, but he's been in the top 15 of majors for 28 straight events, 28 straight majors that he's been top 15.
Wow.
That record is nowhere close to anyone else in active days. It's the best of anyone who's currently actively at this tour level. Ken Climo and Dave Philberg both have longer streaks. He's a ways to check Ken Climo at 48, but he's playing good. He's playing good at majors. It's just that next tier of winning. It's weird that it's a drought at majors. It almost feels like a coincidence to me, but I think it also says something to the weight that majors pull, whether people believe it or not.
Yep, for sure.
We got.
Well, I was gonna say I'm not done Champions Cup, to be perfectly honest, in major, just because but I believe we have somebody who also likes to talk about disc golf and who was on camera a lot this weekend, and I'm sure we'll talk about the ups and the downs of that experience. But let's bring him in. Casey,
what's up?
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. We've got Nick joined us late, but he's here with us. Matt is not here this week. I did not mention that prior on the show. We've gone an hour without mentioning Matt's name. Some people are going to freak out about that. But I'm going to let others weigh in, but I'm just going to start and simply say, I'm sure we want to talk to you about some of the ups and the downs. I'm not sure exactly how you feel, and we want to hear that from you. But let me just say, for your fans who are rooting you on, that was an incredible performance. I'm sure it didn't end the way you wanted it to, and we want to hear some of that narrative. But man, you were looking good on the screen, and you were playing well. And if nothing else, to know that that's in you. We've seen that pop off a few times here and there, but on that course at that time. So I'm going to still say congrats. That's still an incredible finish at a very competitive major. But maybe let's just toss it to you a little bit and tell us, so round 1, round 2, going into round 3, feeling good and throwing well. From the viewer's standpoint, it appears that the challenge with your finger was what really did you in. But maybe just share a little bit if that's true and kind of how that event went down for you, especially through round 3 and into 4.
Yeah, so obviously the Champions Cup is not supposed to be held at Northwood Black, but W.R. Jackson being one of my favorite courses on tour, at first I was heartbroken, and then as soon as I found out it was being relocated to Northwood Black this year, I was like, well, that's even better. And, coming into it, I just was very determined. I finally get a tournament in Peoria that has nothing to do with Lake Eureka, which feels like a little bit of a weak spot for me on tour. Just that course is not favored for my play style, and Northwood Black is only favored for my play style. So coming into it, I had a little bit of extra spunk, a little bit extra fire that I was ready to kind of unleash on the field and test my skills. Honestly, I played pretty mediocre in practice. I played a practice round on Tuesday with Joel Freeman and Ezra Aderhold, and then I played a practice round on Wednesday with Niklas Tuomas and Jesse Niemanen. And both rounds, I had some good shots, some bad shots, but it's Northwood Black. You never know what you're going to get. If anything, I feel like you don't want to play perfect in practice on that course, because then you take things for granted. So coming into the tournament Wednesday night, I know what's in front of me. I know my opportunity. I know how well I can play the course. I had a lot of things on my mind. Let's just say it wasn't that easy to go to sleep the night before the tournament, but I was determined and ready as ever to get out there and do my best. I have my buddy EJ on the bag. He caddied for me last year at Ledgestone. And on 2 rounds at Northwood Black last year, I shot 11 under par, one of them being the hot round. And the only person that beat me at Northwood Black was Cole Rodolin, who shot 12 under, and he won the tournament by 10. So that was something to kind of, motivate me coming into this week. All right, I only lost to the winner of the tournament by 1 stroke out here. And actually, a shout out to my hosts, Scott and Ann Dean. They're huge disc golf fans. They treat us well. They feed us well. And I just knew that I was going to be taken care of this week, and all I had to do was focus on the golf. And they gave me a shout saying that Foundation had mentioned my name, saying that I would be a good pick for this week. So the night before the tournament, I'm like, all right, yeah, give me something to get fired up before the tournament. I go and find it. I was the last name they mentioned. They're like, oh, Casey Whitey did pretty good on this course last year at Ledgestone, but I don't think he's going to win. And they were like, yeah, no chance. And I was like, okay, yeah, fire me up. Yeah, tell me that again. And I was just ready to go out there and prove them wrong. And round one started solid. You know, Northrop Black, pars are good. There's nothing to cry about. A bogey-free front nine and a couple bogeys on the back nine, and just solid. I think I putted 100% inside the circle. And for me on that course, that's just a matter of getting yourself inside the circle, and that's what I was doing. So a 7 under after round one, I felt really solid about. And when my caddy asked me, "Do you know the scores?" I said, "No, but I bet you I'm in the lead." And he was like, "Yeah, you are." And I was like, "That's sweet." I wasn't surprised, but at the same time, you know, a lead is a lead. They're hard to come by. And day two was obviously a whack experience. You know, I just spent the whole day sitting around until I eventually threw my first shot at 7:20 p.m. and I cashed a circle 2 putt for birdie and parred hole 2. Got to sleep on the lead once more. I actually extended my lead from 1 to 2. But sleeping on a lead is not the easiest feat. You don't really know how to feel or how to think because the job's not done. But I went into day 3 knowing, well, I don't have to sleep on a lead more than however many days, because we're going to play 2 rounds today. So the morning round, I still felt very relaxed, very determined, went out and did my best for a 4 under, 11 under through 2 rounds. Same thing I did at Ledgestone last year. So I was like, yep, I'm right on par. And it was really the downtime in between rounds 2 and 3 on Saturday afternoon that kind of like just ate me alive. Like, it wasn't really a bad thing. It's just like you don't know how you're going to feel holding a lead at a major until you are in that position. And I couldn't sit still. I couldn't think about anything but the golf. I couldn't eat, and I just had hours until I teed off. I couldn't handle myself. But you know, you get to the course on time, you do your work, you do your warm-ups. It wasn't until the announcer said, "Your leader of the tournament, Casey White," on the tee pad, and I stood on the tee pad with the disc in my hand, that all that anxiety, all that built up pressure and nervousness, they just left my body completely. And I was just more locked in than I've ever been at any tournament in my entire career. And I called for my disc to go in the basket halfway through my flight on hole 1. And yeah, strong start in round 3, 3 down through 4. And at that point in the tournament, I will say I have never felt more in control of a tournament, or I should just say more in control of my own fate at any tournament of any tier. And it just happened to be a major. It really just speaks to the type of course that Northrop Black is, because, you know, bogeys happen for everybody. So there's not like, your tournament can't end in one shot, because if you throw one bad shot, so what if you get a bogey? It's the hardest course in the world. And that is kind of what kept my mind at ease. And unfortunately, on hole 6's tee pad, I just ripped my DD1 as hard as I could. And it was an incredible shot. But that was about the point that my finger gave way and the flap that I had developed kind of started to peel back. And with how many power grip, full commitment backhands are required on that course, any sort of deficiency to my finger, especially my middle finger, which is the lifeline to my backhand, was just going to set me back. I tried to nurse it as best I could, but, you know, I started to get a couple bogeys here and there, and my caddy and I just decided we just need to get off this course and just focus on tomorrow. Just get off this course with the best score I can get and just forget about today, go into tomorrow with a fresh mindset. And Sunday, I switched to the super glue method, which I was very unsure of heading into the round. I just wasn't sure if I did a good enough job applying the super glue, and it like still had like a little bit of an indent. I was hoping for like a little more of a bubble, but I still kind of had that indent where the skin peeled off and ripped off. But I would say, like, I started, I think, 3 down through 4, or maybe I was 3 down through 5. I was 3 down through 5. So I felt great out there. Obviously, it was an incredibly windy, dangerous course, mind you. There's tree branches falling on spectators, on players, caddies. There's just branches falling throughout the forest because it's so windy. And one of the PDGA guys was like, kind of like livid at the fact that this was going on, and, you know, play is still just continuing. But, you know, final round major is nothing to be taken for granted. And once I started to fight back towards the end, I was very, very determined to just finish the round at even par. Even par on that course is a great round. And I had one hole left, hole 18. And the only thing that I had to do was commit. And that was the only thing I did not do. I basically just let the disc fall out of my hand, and I clipped the only tree that's in play, and it just happens to trickle roll backwards out of bounds. I feel like I was the first person of the entire tournament to land out of bounds in that hole. And just immediate defeat. I knew how much of the hole I still had to go. A perfect tee shot doesn't even guarantee you a par on that hole. And now I'm out of bounds before I can even get through the gap. And I mean, I slipped in the mud. I had to pitch out, tried to throw a roller, had to pitch out again, and ended up with a triple bogey that knocked me from 5th place to 14th. And let's just say that I am almost to Denver now. I started driving as soon as I got off the course last night, and it has been a pretty rough 24 hours.
Well, thanks for giving us all that insight and information. We know your heart and soul and your passion out there competing, and so I imagine, especially getting the 8 on the final hole, maybe it feels like, literally in this case, insult to injury, as the saying is, mentioning slipping in the mud and all that. So do you think, again, I want to remind you that you still had an amazing performance. I mean, that last hole is brutal, but like, that's a brutal course, and you were there. And I'm not just saying it because you're on the show, but like, watching your throws on those drives where you're performing well was just awesome. So remind you that you have it in you, and we can see that you have it in you. So like, keep grinding, and I'm sure you'll kind of get through that. But there's nothing wrong with decompressing your feelings on that, the way that ended. From a finger standpoint, of course, no surprise. You're going to give us the middle finger.
You want to take a look?
I mean, I'll let everybody take a look. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's hard to see.
it's clear enough. So man, it just kind of peeled that skin right back, huh? And that's right where the
Can't really
disc is.
see it, but
Yeah, that's just it. I like I said, this is my lifeline.
Yeah.
This injury happens to me 3 to 4 times a year, but it only happens when I play too much disc golf. Like, sometimes it's self-inflicted. Like, my buddies asked me to play a round after Sunday morning doubles, and I shouldn't have played that round, or I shouldn't have thrown as many backhands as I did. Self-inflicted. This tournament, completely different. They're having us play lead card played 34 holes of Northwood Black in one day.
Yes.
And in between those rounds, I was going back and forth whether or not I'm going to treat my finger, because that's what I do in between rounds overnight. I treat my finger every night. I use lotion or Bag Balm, Aquaphor, whatever it takes. And the problem is knowing that I had to throw again in a couple hours, it weakens the skin. So weakening the skin makes it more prone to peeling more. So in hindsight, I wish I would have rather just gone straight to super glue heading into round 3, knowing that it was going to be a lot for my finger to handle, but I just hoped for the best.
Yeah.
And obviously now lesson learned, but I do, as many negatives as there are to come off of the weekend, I do have a lot of positives that I'd like to share as well. I'll start with the negatives first, which first of all is the difference between, I shot over par in round 3 with the finger injury and all that debacle. Like, that is what it is. But if I closed out even par on Sunday and got 5th place, man, the finger probably stopped me from having a chance at winning. But 5th place, I would have been ecstatic. Like, 5th place at a major, my best finish before this was 22nd. And, the money is one thing, but it's also making your sponsor proud and, all that good stuff that comes from a top 5 at a major. My best finish ever at a Pro Tour is 5th. So I would have liked to have tied that. But then what also I have to take away from it is the fact that I am able to reflect on the weekend and know that I was more nervous when I was playing without the lead than when I played with the lead. When I had the lead, I was just so focused and determined I didn't have a worry in the world. Once I lost the lead, I started to feel like I had something to lose. And I've had the lead at Elite Series events before and at a major. And every single time I have the lead, I'm scared to lose it. So now to find myself, mind you, on a course that I am very comfortable on and a lot of players on tour are terrified of, that is something that comforted me while I was playing. But it's also very painful to know that, of course, the finger ruined my third round. Painful to know that this event will probably never happen at Northrop Black again. I don't think I'll ever get another chance to play 4-round major at Northrop Black because it'll go back to WR Jackson.
Yeah, I've heard other people kind of react to that. Even, somebody like Presnell who says, hey, this course is suited for me. It's like, hey, let's run it back, right? And I'm sure you're feeling the same. I don't know. Maybe that's still, clearly everybody expects it to go to WR Jackson, but maybe that narrative's not over. You never know in disc golf. That course is incredibly challenging. Many of the fans watching it, you're playing it, but we really love it. I think we feel like it would be too much to see that kind of course week in and week out. The scoring was just incredibly different, but it sounds like you're saying, hey, at least 1 weekend a year, give you that style of course because it suits your game. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and of all things, I have to say, like with all the coverage I got, which was rounds 2 and 3, holding the lead, I couldn't ask for a better opportunity to showcase my highest abilities. Like those shot shapes are my most comfortable and my most confident. And there's not a course on tour I would rather be on film and proving that I have what it takes to win an Elite Series event. And I am just really proud of myself to have gone out there, and I felt like I showed my competitors what scary Casey White looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your competitors and your fans. Although some of your fans maybe already kind of felt like they know what you have.
I feel that is true. So I feel like my competitors just kind of needed to see that and think twice about looking past my name on the leaderboard.
For sure. And foundation to write you off at the end.
Yeah.
We would never say that on this show, Casey, ever.
One thing I did want to say though is just like, I mentioned the foundation thing, like my leading motivations for the tournament. Obviously, I have my own confidence and everything like that. But so 2022 Champions Cup, I practiced more than anybody at WR Jackson. I was more prepared than anybody in the tournament. I was ready to get after it. Ended up shooting a hot round the first round, found myself in the lead. And the problem was that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the lead after round 1. And then once I was in the lead after round 1, I was like, oh, crap, what do I do now? And I was, like I said, scared. This tournament, the only thing I wanted to do was win. And it didn't matter if I was in the lead after 1 or 2 or 3. If I had a chance to win, that's all I needed to know. And last year at Champions Cup was the last tournament before I adjusted my form because I found myself just struggling to hit every single gap at WR Jackson. A feeling that somebody who prides themselves as a woods player, it's a terrifying feeling not being able to have confidence in your gap hitting ability. And after, I want to say round 2 of Champions Cup, maybe it was round 3, but I want to say it was round 2, I was just so defeated in the clubhouse. And after we confirmed scores and I played with Nico LaCastro, and Nico and I have a pretty positive relationship. We build each other up from time to time. But I just sat there staring at the scorecard in disbelief, the fact that I was 3 under after 2 rounds at WR Jackson, when last year I was upset to be 17 under through 2 rounds. And Nico just looked me in the eyes and said, hey, man, you've got mad skills and you're going to win a big one day. I know it. And somebody with as much talent as Nico and the relationship that we have, I just immediately started crying because I didn't feel like I even belonged there in that moment. And for somebody who has won a major title in their career to tell me that he knows for a fact that I will win a big tournament one day, that was a motivating factor for me this weekend. And I just did everything I could.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to see the support. And yeah, you keep out there, and we've used this word a lot on tonight's show, but keep grinding even yourself. Here you are already on the road, hitting up the next events and figuring out what you're doing. And yeah, that hard work, that mentality, like it's going to pay off, especially when you have the skills. I'm curious, with something like your finger, and I don't keep drawing it back to that because I think the tournament obviously was 4 rounds, it was more, but like clearly that's a physical challenge that you face. But how much of that becomes mental at any point? Or is it no, there's no mental challenge there. It's all physical. It's just the finger, the pain, the protecting it. Or does it start to throw you off of your plan? And once you're off of your plan, it's hard to get back on track.
The thing that threw me off the most in round 3 is, let's say I busted it on the last shot of round 2, and I'm entering round 3 knowing I need to play with tape or, glue it shut, anything like that. If I'm able to mentally prepare, I feel like it's out of sight, out of mind. I'm just throwing with the hand I've been dealt. But I was thrown a curveball mid-round, and that's happened to me before. And it happened to me before at Las Vegas mid-round, but Las Vegas is a course where you can get away with missing your line by a few feet. Northwood Black is the exact opposite of that. So basically what I'm saying is, with proper treatment and care leading up to a round, tape can work just fine. But mid-round, my hand is already sweaty, it's covered in chalk, everything like that. The tape was slipping off my finger as I'm throwing every shot. Like, it was a complete nightmare. And round 4, I was able to prepare, super glue it shut, and go in with just as much confidence as I could. But that feeling is still not there because there's still that super glue in between my skin and the disc. And it wasn't a hindrance much at all in the final round, but it's still just not the perfect feeling that I want when I am attacking a course with 100% commitment.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, that's why we ask. I think many of us who are watching we have our own experiences on the course, but to hear from pros like you to actually, how are you dealing with that adversity and giving us kind of the real on the ground challenge. So thanks for kind of elaborating. And by the way, again, thanks for joining us when really it's like, maybe it doesn't feel like the best moment, and we're kind of pulling you on and kind of grilling you with some of these questions. I want to to totally move off of that, because you shared something early in your narrative. And by the way, somebody in the chat is like, Casey has the best disc golf memory like I've ever known. Like, you remember every little thing and every throw and every word and whatever. So
I take pride in that.
Yes, that's awesome. But like you mentioned something, this is not about your play at all now. I'm bringing it broader. You said like the wind was blowing and tree branches were falling. Like, I actually hadn't heard that. I mean, we could see the wind on the broadcast, but like, what was going on the course? Like, you're saying actual, like you guys are all dodging.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes, on
I hadn't
hole
heard
6,
that.
Ricky almost had a tree branch fall right on his head. We were walking down the fairway, and he was looking over his shoulder talking to me, and 2 feet in front of him, boom, tree branch down on the ground. Scared us all. Like, we're like, what the hell is going on right now? Like, why are we even out here? And even, like I said, even the PDJ marshal was like, what the heck are we doing out here? And from what I understand, when I was waiting to tee off for round 3, or no, round 2, when I was waiting to tee off for round 2 for my 7:20 p.m. tee time, apparently the same exact thing was happening, but way worse. And they continued play. So no explanation for that other than complete disregard for player safety. Seth Muncy was not on site. He seems to be the #1 advocate for safety over everything. And the fact that we were missing him this week really goes to show how much care and attention is required to that. Because I don't know if you remember last year at MVP Open, we had the wind delay. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? That didn't happen until Chase Card started their round, because the Pro Tour team got on the course and was like, whoa, this is way too dangerous. And I'm like, bro, we've been playing this all day. We've all been getting hit by tree branches and stuff. Like, they didn't even care about us because we weren't on Chase or lead card. But as soon as the filmed cards get on the course, it's not safe to be on the course. So there just really needs to be way better assessment of what truly is safe conditions.
Yeah, nothing like a tree branch to the head to say it's too late.
I mean, Evelina almost got hit. Evelina almost got hit on the live broadcast during round 2, and people are like, "What are we doing out here?" And then she ends up winning her second major of her career. What happens if she gets hit by that tree branch? We don't know.
Yeah, Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I
likely.
think that round 2 should have been canceled, without a doubt.
Yeah, so actually, I wanted to ask a little bit about the disruption. So I'm going to take this as a segue because obviously the MPO schedule is really wacky. I mean, waiting till 7:20 to play 2 holes, like, all right, And I'm
So
on the
bad.
East Coast, right? So clearly we're even an hour ahead, and like, of course it was dark here, but I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, they're about to start around. I mean, and obviously they're facing challenges with the weather they can't control. We all get that. There's been discussion in the past, just I'm speaking generically here, but about like, hey, can we get more flexibility to handle weather stuff? And, there's lots of logistics that come into play, but with majors, there's only a few major events and there are biggest events in the sport. Do you have any like thoughts? Like, would it be better to just, like you said, cancel a round, right? Which I could get with, especially in a 4-round tournament, or like any thoughts to allowing more flexibility, for example, a Monday option, right?
Yeah,
Something like
so
that
that was
allows a
what I
buffer for
thought was going to
majors.
happen.
Okay.
I thought for sure with the 2 options we were dealt is either cancel round 2 or we're playing final round Monday. I thought that was a no-brainer. It's one of the 2. But I don't believe the PDJ has a rule in place yet that allows tournaments to push the tournament back a day. So Jeff Spring has been talking about it for a while now, that he is working on making sure that is a rule for next year. So that is something we will see in the future when we have that weather problem. But in my opinion, we don't have that rule in place right now. So what's more important? We make sure that the most amount of golf is played so that somebody's win is legit, or we make sure nobody gets hurt and we all just agree in a unanimous vote that we shouldn't be on the course right now. But obviously, as the person who is in the lead of the tournament, I'm not a good advocate for that. But I just want to say that I think that in a tournament that's more than 3 rounds, so like, a 3-round Pro Tour being canceled to 2 is kind of bad. But like a couple years ago at MVP Open, round 1 of 4 got canceled, and we still had a completely legit tournament, mind you. Like the women played 4 rounds, we played 3. Nobody looked at that win as a fluke. And as long as the final round isn't canceled, you know how many holes are left to play. We would have been told there's 36 holes left to play, not 54. Go out and chase your major,
Yeah. No,
and I would argue that in Colton Montgomery's favor as well. People say, oh, Colton only had to play a 2-round tournament when he won Waco. That's not true. He was told your tournament is over after this round. He knew what he had to do, and he went out and did it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the sport has to continue to grow, and that's why, by the way, opinions like yours are part of the influencing factor. I mean, there's obviously a lot of like people's perspectives that are taken into consideration, but I agree, right? I was at, Maple Hill last year, and the questions around the wind, and yeah, like you said, once the Pro Tour is on the course, I'm sure they observed it more. We know Seth's advocacy for player safety, and he's been pretty vocal about that. So I don't know. We obviously hope the best as far as safety goes, which you can't just hope. You have to also take action, right? It'll be interesting to see how they continue to adapt. So definitely thanks for sharing your perspective. People like to hear it. Hey, Evan, I think if you don't have anything, great. I think you said you had something to follow up with Casey on. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I want to pick Casey's brain on this because I feel like he's one of the best people in disc golf to really get a feel for the difference where I'm going with this question. Which, I mean, we talked about the 2 locations that PDGA Champions Cup has been in, which is WR Jackson previously, and then Northwood Park, mostly Northwood Black with a little bit of other holes.
Northwood Black.
Park. Yeah. So as a viewer, I haven't had the pleasure of being at either of those courses yet. Definitely want to, but haven't. So I'm trying to gauge them. They're both woods courses. That's obvious. But what about them as woods courses? And my kind of thought is watching Northwood. You got to hit tunnels or gaps and then really stay in the right placement, where I feel like WR Jackson has a lot more like height space and big shots. I believe it's a little bit longer, at least 2 par. And it's definitely easier as score goes. And so I feel like it's woods golf, it's like you can't just say, hey, this person's a good woods golfer, they're good at any woods course, which it could still be true, but I think there's courses that in the woods that suit people's games better or worse, and that's not even getting to, is it a forehand friendly, is it a backhand turnover, like that difference, and so on. So I want to hear from you what you find technically the differences between Northwood and WR Jackson, or any other woods course on tour that you want to throw in. Like, what are the types of shots and what makes it different?
The rough, especially. WR Jackson is the perfect example of tight woods with scrambleable rough. Northwood is pitch out rough. So WR Jackson, you can just throw it as far as you want, and there's a chance that if you leak off the fairway, you can still advance. It's going to take a well-executed shot, but you will be able to advance. At Northwood Black, you can throw the perfect shot and slide 2 feet into the rough and have nothing but backwards. And that is a big difference because, there are a lot of tight turns where you're turning corners. Northwood Black, for the most part, is a one fairway course. You have this exact directory, and if you don't follow that directory, you're going to find yourself in trouble. WR Jackson is the John Houck design, king of multiple option fairways. So I go, all right, I'm going for the right fairway. I blast a distance driver. Mind you, I don't throw a single distance driver at Northwood Black. I blast a distance driver. I kick a right tree, kick all the way left to the point that I'm in the left fairway. And I'm like, well, now I have the left fairway to work with. That's the difference.
So what about Northwood suits your game the best? Is it the hitting the gaps and not getting into the rough? Or is it the better ability to play well, whether it's smartly or the shot wise, out of the rough?
I think that Northwoods is more rewarding to the perfectly executed shot, whereas WR Jackson has a couple more holes where there are trees in the middle of the fly zone, and you kind of just got to hope for the best, and you can miss your gap and get through, where Northwood has very well-defined fairways. There's only a handful of holes that have a single tree in the middle of the fairway. I think probably like 4 holes have trees that are like, they could go. But WR Jackson, it just kind of seems like a gamble from time to time. That doesn't mean that, you don't have to be perfectly executing your lines. But one thing that I think is the biggest reason that Northwood Black is so much more difficult for players compared to WR Jackson is because a lot of the landing zones on Northwood Black, they don't go left, and they're not like a forehand hyzer shot. They are a late drifting backhand turnover. And that is my favorite shot to throw in the game.
Well, there it is. Last question about Northwood, before a few other things. Hole 12. Averages well over par 5. Actually, this year through 4 rounds is only 5.9, which beats Ledgestone years by a little bit. Of course, this field being a little bit more
elite,
yeah,
field.
invitational
Yes.
type of earn the spot with limited other registration spots. But let's say you're the king of Northwood. You get to set whatever you want to do to that course, but that course cannot change. But you can change the par if you want. Are you team it's still a par 5, or you team it's a par 6?
Par 6 just don't sound right to me. I think that the answer to solving that hole is every tree in the last tunnel smaller than my wrist has to go. Par 5.
Keep it a par 5 and make it easier. Although by my rules, you weren't allowed to change it, but I'll still take that answer because that's good insight.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. I'm not allowed to change it. No, it has to stay a par 5 because par 6s, they're just that sounds wrong.
It's your interview, so I guess it's not for me to say, but I will anyways. If that hole is a par 6, it's, as far as birdie rates go, it's like middle of the table in Northwood, and that seems wrong to me for that course being as spectacular it is just view wise, and just the bridge is fantastic within that late hill and then tunnel. Love the hole. It's also like known for being tough, and that's the point. If it's no longer the toughest hole to birdie, and quarter to 40% of the field can birdie it. Feels like it loses some of its charm. So I don't think you can go par six, and par sixes do. I don't know. They can be. I'm not a hater of par sixes in general, but I don't. Feel
it's so famously the hardest hole in the world now that you can't change it now.
Mm-hmm. That's true too. Last one for me is you mentioned you're on your way to Denver, or almost there. I checked your schedule a little bit. Looks like you're not playing an event this weekend, although DDO is happening in Emporia, but you're playing Las Vegas Challenge, which is now an A tier, held in May. So tell us why you're not in Emporia, and then maybe why you chose to play Las Vegas before getting out to the West Coast.
Well, first of all, even if I was planning to play DDO, I would have dropped out last night because of my finger, because there's just no point. But, Emporia Worlds in 2022 left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't really feel a need to go out and, throw a bunch of distance driver hyzers. I would rather spend a week with my girlfriend for her 30th birthday and go have a boys' weekend in Lake Tahoe, and I need it bad.
Nice. Well, happy birthday to her. Thought it was also fantastic. So enjoy it, and hey, good luck at Las Vegas Challenge. It'll be interesting to see how many people show up there, what the field's like. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I will say about this Las Vegas Challenge, it's going to be an Elite Series worthy win, but an A tier worthy cash line.
As in easier to get cash and not as much cash?
But easier to get cash because of the bottom of the field, but the top of the field will be like it playing an Elite Series event.
Sure. Yeah. And that event historically, the cash line is tough. Yeah. A lot of people very close to it.
Well, we might finally get good weather. That's what I'm excited about.
There you go. Although, windy, but I've always been one that in February, I don't complain too much about like low 50s. It's not the worst thing in the world. Although certainly Olympus, that was fantastic weather. So not to directly compare the two, but I'll leave the rest of the praise of Olympus to Nick. But that's all I got, Josh. I don't know if you have any more, or if Ben, or if Nick, if you are sitting around there, I don't even know.
I am. I'm hanging out.
All right. Well, Nick, you got to at least ask one question for Casey before we let him go.
Oh, all right. On the spot. I didn't really have one. Just want to say, congrats. It was awesome to watch. I know all of us back home are rooting for you. I guess one of the biggest things is, you've won A tiers before. You've won A tiers by a lot of strokes. You've been in the position to win at Elite Series events and majors. Like, talk to us a little bit what the mentality is like, being at the major, kind of in that position at a course that the spectators aren't as big as if you were in, a wide open area, maybe like Maple Hill or something like that. But talk to us just a little bit in general, what that means to you, just kind of being in that moment.
Honestly, I didn't even notice if there was any spectators watching for the most part. I don't even know where the spectators are and aren't allowed on that course. Man, Northwood is just one of a kind because, I was in the driver's seat for a long time, and it was the first time I've ever had a lead where I was able to bogey in the driver's seat and it wasn't the end of the world. And that like comfort in my brain alone was able to just kind of put my mind at ease and know that I can win this tournament without every shot having to be absolutely perfect, because I'm going to bogey. My opponents are going to bogey. It's going to happen. I just need to do my best to hit the fairways and play smart and hit my putts. And comparing it to a course like Maple Hill, where it seems like, coming down the stretch there, like Matty O did this year, like, wow, lead card doesn't even have a chance if they have to eagle out to push a playoff. You know what I mean? Imagine being in the lead of a tournament, you have to eagle out to even push a playoff. Like that, that is just unbelievable to me. And even with like the tight spacing at Northwood Black, like, man, I shot a +4 in round 3 and I only dropped from 1st to 5th. If I shot a +4 at any other Elite Series event when I was leading it, I would have dropped off of freaking filmed coverage.
Yeah. Nope, I get you there. So that's it for me. Yeah. So Josh, kind of.
No, yeah, I think that's it. So Casey, you're always a fan favorite on the show. We also enjoy having you. So appreciate it. I'm glad you're recognizing, I mean, like you said, maybe your finger would have forced it, but you had already made the decision to get some rest and recovery. I think we've talked with you before about how important it is to find that right balance. So I'm glad you're out there. Enjoy that time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining. And unless you have anything else to add, say thanks.
No, thanks for having me. I always love coming on here, and you guys let me speak my mind and just say it how it is, and that's who I am. So thanks.
That's what we want.
That's why we love it, and that's why we're going to have you back again. I promise.
All right, sweet. Well, after I win somewhere soon.
Las Vegas.
Yeah,
bring
sure.
it.
There you go. All
All
right,
right.
good luck. Safe travels to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it.
Peace.
Peace. All right. So I mentioned it in passing a few minutes ago. Is we've went like, almost the whole show and barely mentioned like Matt's not here. And Nick, you didn't show up until like the last few minutes. I mean, you've been in the background for a bit, but
yeah, just been hanging out.
And I was joking and said, Matt's takes last week were just too hot that we had to kind of put him on hiatus for a week.
Yeah.
So, that's just the way it goes.
We gotta let him cool down a little bit.
Yeah, which is not the case. He is away on work, and a little bit of pleasure mixed in. And to that point, believe it or not, I have 3 of Matt's boys like running around the rest of my house here. They've been here for like 2 days. So like,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. So it's been interesting.
Yeah.
So glad we're pulling off this show. It's
right,
actually
Evan,
been great.
Yeah, Evan, really quick, because I kind of, obviously joined in the show late today, but I've been seeing it all over Twitter. And this is what I want to say, just really quick in general. No one look at the ratings to this tournament. What Andrew Presnell did, what Evelina Salonen did, was played incredible disc golf, and they won a major. Do not let the ratings deter the incredible disc golf that they went out and played. I don't care if they only averaged 1041 and 1005 or 1015, whatever it was. They both played incredible. So don't look at the ratings. But Evan, hole 12. Do you like the hole or not? Because honestly, goodness, I think it's the best hole in disc golf. I don't think that, and I've played it before, and I probably will never ever birdie that hole. I hopefully will get to play it again one time soon. I've parred it before during a tournament, and that was like the coolest feeling in the world. And it was just with 5 good shots where like so many people are just like, oh, we got to make everything birdieable. Like, no, I love the fact that you have to throw like 3 perfect shots and 1 good one to get a birdie on that hole. I think it's incredible. But that's
it's really tough to get like a full grasp of that hole as a viewer. I mean, I think that is one tough thing about, I guess golf too. It's just like par 4s and 5s, like par 3s you understand. And then once you're at a course, it just all clicks. Like I promise, like Olympus, like I've seen throw down the mountain coverage in the past. Like I've recognized like 2 or 3 of those holes when I showed up down there. And like D-Glow was the same thing at Toboggan. It's just, it's not that the course is the problem. It's just that gauging it is so much different when you're there in person. And so to really like say it's the best hole in the world or it's overrated or whatever it is, like I haven't been there. Like I cannot judge it in that sense. But what I can do is look at the numbers, and you got to know what the context of it is too. Like the context of it is it's, the hardest or one of the hardest holes that, players play all season. And I think, first of all, when we say that, it's definitely the MPO side of the stat. For FPO, it is a tough hole, but there are tougher holes. And it's still iconic for FPO. But as far as the toughest hole, it's definitely an MPO stat. And same with Northwood as a whole as well. There are tougher courses for the women. But 12, what I just think it's the second half of it is, even as a viewer watching like through broadcasts or post-production or pictures, it's like you see how cool that hole is. And I think it's one of a kind. Just once you hit the turn, how straight it looks, and you see a slight downhill, you see a bridge that is a well done, nice bridge, to then maybe a flatness, maybe a slight uphill, and then you hit that next hill and you can't even see the basket, or you can see it barely poking out through this tunnel. Like that right there is what makes the hole for me. It's so picturesque. And it's also just you see the basket and it's just straight. You know what you need to do, and it's so hard to do it. So, I mean, like, I think there is a world where you could change up that hole in a number of different ways. I mean, not making it a par 6, but it's a joke, in other ways.
Yeah.
But I think that hole, no matter what, the ending of it is just so fantastic that I think it's going to be a great hole with no matter what the configuration is. And there's a few other holes in disc golf that can be the same. I mean, like Maple Hill hole 1, you can move the tee to the right or the left or up or down. You can move the basket. You could add a triple Mando wooden covered bridge. And that hole is still fantastic just because like you just have that scene. It's a one of a kind hole. I think hole 12 is the same. It's one of a kind. It's special. And I mean, you can compare it to hole 14. A lot of people might not like hole 14 as much, and it's the same kind of idea of the difficulty, but it's a lot less picturesque. And so I'm not saying I'm not ragging on that hole. Just that's the difference between hole 12 and hole 14. It's like hole 12 is just like, I can think of it right now in my head. I could like walk it blindfolded and feel like I'm somewhat getting an idea, at least the second half of it. We're like hole 14. I know it goes and then turns to the left and it's a long tunnel.
Yeah, it goes
it's
left
a little bit
and
different.
then it's just straight. Yeah.
And again, it's not to talk bad about hole 14. It's more of to lift up hole 12. So I don't know. I've rambled on enough.
Like I said, it's just more funny. Just all the Twitter X comments that I see about it, and same thing with ratings going on right now, where I'm just like, man, if when people see those things in person and you see it like that's when it's so much more enjoyable. The hole itself is incredible to play. It's an awesome shape for a righty backhand player, and like watching Paul do it on coverage, he almost had the birdie round 1. I think he ended up getting the birdie in round 4. So Ricky got it, I think, a couple times this weekend as well. Ricky's got that hole. He's probably the best player in the world at playing hole 12 at Northwood.
Yeah, give me a few minutes on that because
I think he is. He must be at like 3 or 4 birdies now for that one. But anyways, go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm not going to talk about ratings in the way that's ridiculous, which is like, was the performance good enough? But by the way, I went and looked at this. Just see if this is interesting, then we can move on because I want to get to our pop, drop, lock picks, and then we're going to wrap here in a little bit. But past major winners with event ratings of 1043 or lower. I was just curious. So in the last 10 years, now what's really interesting is you go beyond that and you get to, 20 years ago, ratings were just at a different point. So kind of exclude those.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, there's only one major that had that rating, and it was USDGC, Will Schustrick in 2014. So really at the 10-year mark. But listen, I'm not going to go through every single event. There's actually not that many. The list is pretty short. But the other tournaments, here's the courses they were played at. W.R. Jackson, Hall of Fame Classic. Iron Hill, Delaware. And then there was both of those. Like, by the way, Hall of Fame Classic, 2 times that's happened. Iron Hill at Delaware, 2 times that's happened. And then you had Beavers State Fling, GBO, and 1 event at Waco. I just found it as interesting about I don't know if there's any comparison to W.R. Jackson and Iron Hill, which is no longer on the tour at the moment in Delaware, but just incredibly challenging wooded courses. And I think that to me is the more insightful piece, not the fact of is 1043 good enough or not, because it's all relative. Like you said, the challenge is the point. Obviously, Presnell played incredible. Obviously, Evelina played incredible to come out with the win. But it is interesting that the list is pretty short. In the last 10 years total, it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 8 events total that have ever shown up that way, only on a handful of courses.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and
just thought I'd add that to the conversation.
Yeah, it's most of those courses that do, play cater in the woods a lot more without so much arbitrary OB that we see. Waco, you play first majority of the holes, pretty much 4 through 12 is pretty much in the woods. And then you got some open holes on the back, but they're not insanely hard open holes. Delaware is 100% in the woods. Northwood, obviously 100% in the woods. W.R. Jackson, 100% in the woods without a lot of OB. And, there's so many different propagators to the ratings, but it was nice to see a very, very fun wooded course on coverage 4 days in a row. I thought that was great. So,
yeah. All right. You ready for this? I looked up Northwood, hole 12. The last 3 years it's been held, that is either a major or elite. So it included Champions Cup this year in 2024. It included Ledgestone in 2023 and 2022 at Northwood. and did hole 12. And I only grabbed players who have played the hole 3 or more times. So that pretty much means you needed to play 2 events at here. You could have missed the cut at Champions Cup. You could have missed, actually, you could have not played Champions Cup and played the last 2 Ledgestone. But anyways, it got the whole list. 131 players fit this criteria in MPO. Guess how many of them, their the last three event attempts at this, have averaged under par on this hole.
Say it again one more time.
Yes, how many players have averaged under par on hole 12 the last 3 events at the major and elite level held at Northwood?
1.
Josh, not just for Nick.
I must not understand the question if the answer.
All right,
could be
well,
one.
I'll move on then and explain it as we tell the answer. Nick, it's 0. There are 2 players who are at even par. One of them is Paul McBeth. The other one's Braden Sides. Who if I would have guessed, I think he played Champions Cup, but not the last 2 Ledgestones, but maybe he played the 2 Ledgestones prior. They both have 1 birdie and then 1 single bogey and then pars otherwise. Ricky Wysocki is the only one to have birdied it multiple times, which I almost don't believe. I know he birdied it, which I'm almost down because he birdied it twice.
He did it twice last year or the year before
at Champions Cup. It's one of those stats where I calculate it. I trust my calculations, but I'm just it feels wrong. No one's birdied it twice. People watching this, look it up. I mean, I looked it up. You should trust me. This isn't a bad thing to say, but try to prove me wrong because I have this doubt because it's so wild. But yeah, I have 11 people. Again, it's people who fit this criteria. So they could have played it twice and birdied it twice and not fit this criteria, which I could be a bad way of doing it. But by this, 11 people who fit the criteria have birdied it. All of them once except for Ricky Wysocki. Notably, he's over par, as I said, by no one being under par because he has 2 double bogeys or worse. I don't know how bad they are. I only did double bogey or worse, and so he's finishing +1 the last 3 times on it. One other thing I wanted to throw out is Casey White said that he was the second best at Northwood at Ledgestone last year. Gave him some confidence going into Champions Cup. Of course, once he says that, I got to just double check. I trust. I got to trust Casey because his memory is fantastic. I'm not doubting his memory. But that's still my nature that I got to double check it, just like I almost want people to double check my stat earlier. But it is true. He was 11 down. Last year, Cole Redallen was 12 down, and that was the only one better. And so what I decided to do was group them together and did the best at last year's Ledgestone at just the Northwood rounds, and then these 4 rounds at Northwood. And Casey's third. He's 15 under combined. Ricky Wysocki's 19 under. With Ezra Robinson in second at 16 under. So very neat. The 2 winners, although Cole Redallen, he led it at Northwood last year, but ultimately won Ledgestone with other rounds included. He's down in 8th at 9 down, and then Presnell is at 13 down in 5th for just this leaderboard. So really interesting that, that's the game is you win when the events are for it and not over this longevity. That doesn't matter as much as winning when the event is held.
Bingo.
Yep. All right, well, let's get to a pop, drop, lock and see how good we were at picking the results on this challenging course.
We were not.
Yeah, right.
Spoiler.
We'll see. We'll see. But Ben, if we've got that in the queue, let's pull it up and look at the results. Presented by... Who's it presented by? Matching hats today.
There you go.
Hey, Ben, you're gonna have to do a retake. Everybody says you're muted. I don't know about everybody.
Oh my!
All right, so unmute yourself.
Muted that whole time.
Wow, I was muted that whole time.
For everybody who couldn't hear, Ben was doing amazing. But honestly, Ben, run it back right now. Who's this sponsored by?
This episode is
Just do
presented by Hooligan Disc. Shout out Hooligan Disc.
This segment.
This segment.
This segment, Pop Lock Drop. They just got their new putter, the dime approved, the thread approved, their new manufacturer. They're retooling a lot of their old modes. It's an incredible, fun time for Hooligan Disc. So go check them out. Use my code Ben10 or Stans10. And they just came out with new hats. They got a gray and camo hat. Me and Josh are seen wearing the hats. So if you guys want to check out Hooligan Disc and get a hat, and most importantly, honestly, their disc, it's incredible. It's made by an incredible company, and just Garrett, the owner, is amazing with kind of his process behind it. And they've already come out with 5 discs since January, so it's been awesome. And the dime is an insane putter. So go check out the dime and try putting with it. And if it becomes your main putter, let me know, and well, I don't know. I'll help you out with something. I'm not sure. Well, I'll talk to Garrett.
All right. Better the
you
second time around. Nice job, Ben.
Thank you.
All right, let's look at the scores. If you've got them queued up, let's just run right through.
Yeah. So we'll go. I don't know. I think let's go to Evan first.
Oh boy. Well, all I gotta say is, Ben, your pop pick, Madison Walker, finally played. I mean, stoked to see it for Madison Walker's sake. Less so that I had to get that negative 25 points. That was a bummer.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, finishing a -1, something to be proud of there. Evan.
You should.
Yeah, finishing under at Northwood Black, like that's an accomplishment, right? Like, am I the only one to finish under par?
I think ever. I don't think anyone's ever finished negative.
Oh, that's not
on the
true.
show.
Matt certainly. Oh, and Matt's doing the best. I can't talk trash. Somebody
who's
has.
next?
I feel.
Who's next?
I don't know. Anyways, next I believe is Josh, right? For third
If
place.
it is in reverse order, I'm not surprised.
Throw up the graphic and we'll see. Yes,
Yeah.
there we go.
So Josh 16. Then we got. Gonna guess Matt. We'll put up Matt. Oh wow, Matt. Sorry, Matt. You didn't do
Matt
it
with
too
5
high.
Matt had a rough week.
Fiver.
Hey, but listen, he picked Robert Burridge to pop off. To drop. Right.
Yeah.
And
Bad
Burridge
call.
had a great weekend. So ouch.
See, I picked Cat Merch to drop, and she literally dropped. She dropped the
actually
event.
did.
She
Which doesn't
DNF'd,
hurt you as
and I was like, okay.
All
But
right.
it
Who do we
doesn't
got?
help.
Nick or Ben? Who's next?
Let's go with
Probably
Nick.
Nick beat me by 1. All right.
17 points for Nick. Nice job.
And
Trying to
then
catch up to Matt again.
I think this is my second week winning. Boom.
And 51.
That's a good
51
win.
points.
Ben-
Yeesh.
Shout out Madison Walker.
Good
Thanks for
win.
playing.
Ben
that
brought
was-
it home this week.
Yeah.
So if I've got it right, I believe, shout out Madison Walker. Anybody who's been listening knows like Ben has been riding that train and it paid off this week at
Yes.
least.
Yeah,
Yes.
so did 54 other people in Pop Drop Block.
See,
I
they've
guess
been listening. They know my
somebody
techniques.
knew, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to go through every number here. We're up on 2 hours, but Matt still has the lead. Nick is still in second, although it's a ways
Shrunk
off.
it a little bit.
Yeah. And Ben is only 22 behind Nick. So like,
Okay.
that's within striking
big one
distance.
from Ben.
Chunkin.
And then you have me, and then you have Evan, who's kind of weighed down by the drops, but he's hanging in there.
Hanging
-1.
in there. I'm sticking to it.
All right.
I gotta.
All right. So considering how great we are at prognosticating results, let's talk about what we're seeing happen at DDO.
Which is why I feel like it's nonstop disc golf right now.
Yeah, man. Like
Yeah,
we were
man.
talking at the beginning, Nick, before you joined, about like the first major, the second for FPO. It kind of starts to really like paint the
Yeah.
narrative. But then the fact there's another event like 4.5
Right after.
days after. I mean, this is like
Yeah.
we are in the trenches like now.
Yeah, and before we go into our pick, sorry to cut you off, Nick. I do
You're good.
feel like this is worth saying, so I apologize. But going into DDO, it looks like MPO is going to have a fairly normal looking field, fairly stacked. All the best players are going to be there. Although I believe Eagle is not playing, although unfortunately didn't have that good finish, but taking a week off. But in FPO, I think it'll be really interesting how the registration is looking. There's only one European signed up, which is Lucky Lorenzen. After I just mentioned that 5 of
Yeah, they
the
were all
6
on the top, yeah.
were Europeans. They're all back going over to Europe, spending some time at home. I think they're coming out for the West Coast before getting back for that little Europe swing. But really interesting. It looks thin, but there's still plenty of good players. Some of who are looking for their first Elite Series win, so it'll be really interesting. So get into it, Nick. Sorry for cutting you off.
Alrighty, my pop, we're going to go on the FPO side first. Hannah Wynn, I think this is a great event for her to be able to pop off. A couple FPO players have saying she's slowly kind of finding her stride right now. For my drop is Rebecca Cox. I think this, depending if it's a really, really windy weekend, I think she would potentially struggle. And my lock would be Valerie Mandujano. I think we're seeing kind of a slim down feel in FPO, like Evan was just talking about. I think this is a great opportunity for Valerie to capitalize, coming off of a pretty decent event as well. Pop for MPO, Carter Aarons, the kid, I should say, smashes. I think he's still a young one. Absolutely smashes the disc. Hasn't been playing great so far, so he's got a decently high average. I think this is a great event to where if he can control that hyzer, not push for too much, I think this is a great event for him. Matt Bell is such a tough player to ever say he's going to drop because all of a sudden he makes a sneaky top 10 finish and you're like, where did that come from? But for some reason, Matt Bell this week, and then my lock, Ricky Wysocki. I think this is his time. Dynamic discs open, dynamic player. We'll see it.
All right, let's get into
next.
We'll just do Matt's picks real quick. He has pop Ben Calloway, drop Luke Humphreys, and lock Calvin Heimberg for MPO.
Say what? Locking Calvin Heimberg from
Locking
Matt?
Calvin.
He loves Calvin. And then for FPO, we got Deanne Carey for pop, Rebecca Cox for drop.
Dude, I swear, Matt and I every single week.
Lock for Holland Hanley.
Golly.
All right. I'll go into my picks. Evan, did you guess right?
I got one of them, which was kind of obvious.
Madison Walker. So I'll do MPO. We got Drew Gibson popping off. I feel like I've been picking Drew every single week. We got dropping Luke Humphreys. I've been picking Luke a lot. And then lock, I'm going with Anthony Burrell. I don't think I've chosen him yet. It just makes sense. Bomber course, he could do it. Pop, I'm going Madison Walker. She is registered. Madison, please keep playing. Drop, I'm going Owen Scoggins just because, it's just my strat. High drops. And then locking in, I'm going Holland Hanley. She played well here last year and got second place. So that's what I'm going with. And I'm feeling pretty confident.
Yep. There's almost never a good rationale to pick a drop, by the way, like at least anything substantial.
It's very rare. Yeah.
Because if there's actually something happening that would throw the player off, they usually aren't going to play the event. I guess your best guess is maybe this course is just not suited well to them. But anyway, all right, who's next? Me or
you?
Yeah, it's you.
All right, put him up. All right, pop Brody Smith.
Whoa.
Let's just see. I mean, his average is so low. He almost made the cut this past weekend, and he's played.
Well, he made the cut.
He did make the cut. He
made the cut. No cash though.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that's a better performance for him, and he's played well at this event in the past. Chris Dickerson as a drop for no reason. Anthony Brella as a lock. Emily Beach as a pop, just trying to play the numbers.
Wait, that's Evan's Emily Beach.
I know that's his. I thought
Anyone's
about
allowed
it when
to
I
pick
locked
her.
it in. Yeah, and then Cat Merch, and then hey Nick, I'm with you, Valerie, going for the win.
Digging it.
All right, Evan, let's bring it home. Let's get more than minus one.
Yeah, well, before I do my picks, I announced earlier today in our group chat, I'm playing a game within the game. I'm trying to guess what Ben's pops are to do my drops. Luckily, Shrek has been great by updating my picks, but sometimes I will set predetermined drops until I find out from the show. And last week I had a drop before I saw Ben's pops for my drop. Trying to say a lot there.
Pop drop.
And so I stuck with my defaults. Thankfully, he updated them before the event started, or based on what I said on the show before the event started. Anyways, what I was going with there is now I'm trying to guess what Ben's going to pick, and that's my game within the game. And so I got Madison Walker right. I guess Tristan Tanner as your other pop, but Drew Gibson, great pop pick. Anyways, into my picks, Mason Marchbanks averaging 81st, and he got a top 10 here last year. I truly don't know much about his game. Hope to learn more, but I like those numbers that I see. And then pop on FPO is Allie Smith. She started playing so well last season, and this year feels like it has almost been like a half step backwards, but not that her play's been half a step backward, just at least the results have been. So I like her here. And then give me Drew Gibson and Madison Walker. Not rooting against Madison Walker. She's fantastic. But as far as the points go, it sure would be nice if she chose not to play. But Madison, you do you. And then locks, similar to a few other people, I'll go in Calvin Heimberg and Holland Hanley. I mean, Holland Hanley, I'm picking her to a fault, it feels like. Sometimes it's because I feel good for a top five.
For her.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No
Wow.
way.
He's burning.
Josh, I love it.
Thanks for that, because I knew I was getting a lot there, which is like, okay, like
Yeah.
Jonesboro is like, I felt good about a top 5, not necessarily a win. It's good because this is the final time I want to pick her for a win this
Yeah.
season, because like this feels like it is. Nick mentioned second place was it losing in a playoff year last year.
Yep.
The field's a little bit slimmer. There's no Kristen Tatar that's waiting on people. There's no Evelina Salonen who's been balling, weighing on people. Like the field is open. Anyone can go and get it. So really rooting for Holland here to do it. Not picking favorites though, but she is my lock. And then Calvin Heimberg, just like I picked him a few times too, and my goodness,
He's
it's
failing
been
us.
it's a Tuesday tomorrow at time of recording tomorrow, but Tuesday, April 30th will mark 1 year since Calvin Heimberg's last win.
Ooh.
Wow.
It's time.
That's
It's
kinda
time.
wild. Yeah.
He had that one bad start to the year, took a week off, got set, and here he is balling again, just doing his normal Calvin things. He's gonna get a win. I know it. We'll see.
This is your weekend.
This is my weekend.
This is your Calvin Heimberg.
This is my Calvin
Yeah,
Heimberg and Holland Hanley. It's a win now. I need to get it. The field is open.
Yeah.
It's my time.
All right. Well,
Good.
don't forget to play along with us, because you can play against your friends and you can probably pretty easily beat all of us. So like,
Yeah,
you might as well
no
jump in
kidding.
on that. We didn't talk about who won last week. I'd have to pull up that name. We usually do that. Matt, I think, usually jumps on that.
We will email you and get you all situated.
Yeah. As far as the code name goes, it's Intuitive Dragonfly. So they had a lot of intuition,
Nice.
pulling out 110 points, by the way. So nice job.
Code name.
All right. Well, we've had a full show. Unless any of you are
Yes,
going
this
to cut
is
me
long.
off, I'm going to say, first of all, congrats to Simon Lizotte and their new child, right? Which is
Yes.
pretty exciting. Is it
Baby
Mia?
girl.
Is that?
I think Mia.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so
Or as Terry
awesome.
Miller says, Maya.
Maya.
But
But it is
my-
Mia.
my wife-
All the love to Terry.
My wife mentioned that. She goes, now I assumed it was pronounced Mia. Is there
Yeah.
a reason they said Maya?
It's
And
that
I said,
Midwestern
"Probably
accent,
That's
not."
you
disc
know?
golf commentators for you.
Yeah, unless they know something, But anyway, congrats, Simon. I doubt you're listening over 2 hours into our show, but it's still a heartfelt congrats from us to you.
Of course.
And then Ben, I saw an announcement that you're doing something in Texas, so I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the coming months. But that's exciting.
Disc Golf Expo. Yeah, if you haven't heard, I'm bringing a Disc Golf Expo. Still doing one in the Northeast, but I'm bringing one to Dallas, Texas, the first weekend in March 1st and 2nd, 2025. So if you're in Dallas or want to vend in Dallas,
2025.
yep, next year. So I'm doing 2 expos, and who knows? Maybe that'll be it. So if you want to go to a Disc Golf Expo, start booking your flights, and if you book your room, I'm gonna have links to book your room. But if you call in, say you're going in for the expo, because it helps me out. Because if people don't book their room, I have to pay a lot more money.
All right. Well, as it gets closer, we'll promo that more. So congrats on expanding. Cue up the music. Nick, you want to bring us home unless anybody else has got comments?
No, sir. What a weekend of disc golf. We could have said way more, but we already went way more. So I think it's about time.
Exactly.
I can't cue up
Nope,
the
what
music
an
because
incredible-
the audio effects, it was echoing at first. So
Gotcha. Don't worry about it. Anyways, thank
we
you
should be
everybody
good.
for
Wait.
Oh,
Should be good.
All right. Come on now. All right.
There we go. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning
Okay.
in on this wonderful Monday night. Thank you for bearing with me, being an hour late to the show. Life happens, but I'm so thankful for the guys to be able to keep everything going. Check us out next week after DDO. We'll probably all 5 of us be here from Staggered Stance talking about it. Thank you to Disc Golf 978 Hooligan Discs for hooking us up with stuff to do on the show for you guys. Go check them out. The links will be in our bios. Check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell someone you love them this week. We'll catch you in the next one.
Later.
Nick, you're awesome. Ben, you're awesome. Josh, you're awesome. Evan,
Matt, you're awesome.
Matt, you're
That's awesome too.
Yo, shout out Matt. He is awesome. Bye.